I thought our marriage was perfect, but I was wrong. 15 years of trust shattered in an instant. I caught my wife with her wealthy boss in our own home. She thought she could hide her betrayal, but I saw everything. The lies, the deceit, it all came crashing down. I had to act fast, plan my revenge. I set up cameras, gathered evidence. I was determined to expose her. My heart was broken, but my mind was sharp. I wasn't going down without a fight. This is my story, my revenge, and it's far from over. I saw the pile of Excel files just added to my inbox on the company's SharePoint site and realized I'd be working until at least 6:30 p.m. It happened every month. Managers waited until the last minute to send their reports, and I had to organize all the data. So much for getting home at a reasonable time. I called my wife Samantha to explain and let her know I'd be working late again. "End of the month blues again, Mike?" my wife asked. "That's me, by the way. Mike Jacobs." I could hear the teasing in Samantha's voice. "Yeah," I said. "Happens every month. Some people wait till the last second to send their reports like they expect something miraculous to happen. Sorry, I should be done around 6:30 as usual." "No problem. I figured it would happen," Samantha said with a sigh. "Anyway, I reserved a table for 2 at Luigi's for 7 p.m. tonight. Thought you could use a break." Luigi's was a small, cozy Italian restaurant we both liked. It was next to a small dance club, and we often enjoyed a drink and some slow dancing before heading home. I smiled at the idea of a nice evening with my lovely wife. "Yes, I could," I replied. "That was very thoughtful of you, sweetheart. So, 7-ish then?" "7-ish it is," Samantha confirmed. "Bye for now," she added before ending the call. It seemed odd that she didn't end the conversation with her usual loving words. Then I realized her boss, Wilson Langley, the senior partner at Hempstead Law Group, was likely nearby. I looked at the handset for a moment before putting it down, then got to work. I saved the spreadsheets, opened my main sheet, and started a macro that would do most of the work. It used to take hours to go through all the data, but the macro our IT team set up did a great job of organizing everything, and it took only a fraction of the time. While my coffee brewed, I sat back and thought about the last few years and my life with Samantha as the macro did its work. I wasn't always an office worker. In fact, until about 7 years ago, I was a federal agent working for a special task force, a mix of public and private efforts. I was one of the first agents on the task force and reported directly to the head, a family law attorney named Bill Jackson. I worked with some of the best in the field. Frank Michaels for one and Oscar Warren another. Sadly, Frank was killed on the job. Oscar married the boss's daughter and is moving up the ranks. The agency I worked for, called the Homefront Security Task Force, was made to go after a group called the Mutual Marital Assurance Society, or MMAS. The group was started by a female lawyer whose husband cheated on her. She was treated unfairly by the courts, so she sought revenge. At first, MMAS targeted cheating husbands, punishing them harshly. They were hard to catch, and we spent most of our time protecting the husbands targeted by their wives. We called those tasks interventions, and we were usually successful. When I say punishment, I mean it was often brutal. Some husbands even died from it. Many more were scarred for life, both physically and emotionally. The hospital at Fort Apache, where the task force was based, was full of men hurt by MMAS. Seeing what many men went through made me wary of relationships. After witnessing so much pain, I avoided committed relationships. So I went from one intervention to another, doing my best to help the men assigned to me. My life changed drastically when a bullet hit my right thigh close to the knee during one of those interventions. After months of surgery and physical therapy, I could walk again with a cane. But my career as a federal agent was over. Bill, being a straightforward guy, told me face-to-face that my time with the task force was done, and there were no slots I could fill. I got a medal, the thanks of a grateful nation, and a monthly disability check. Bill thought that wasn't enough and spoke to his contacts to get me a job as an assistant operations director at Iverson Security Services, or ISS. ISS is a nationwide company providing uniformed on-site security, private investigations, and armed security for wealthy VIPs. One of the company's clients just happened to be the task force I once served. Better yet, The headquarters where I would work was in my hometown. I owned a 2-story house left to me by my grandparents. Happy I wouldn't have to move or sell my home, I gladly accepted the job after a short interview with Jack Iverson, the company president and founder. My new job was simple compared to what I used to do. I basically pushed paper, made visits to clients to solve problems, and did whatever Greg Hamilton, the COO at the time, needed done. That's when I first met Samantha Green. At the time, she was an office assistant at Hempstead. She was looking for someone to provide security for the firm's downtown office. When talks between our marketing team and Langley stalled, Greg sent me to sort things out. I had to get the contract signed or stop the back and forth. Wilson Langley seemed happy that ISS sent someone with my skills to clear things up. I knew his game. He wanted more services for less money, like any clever businessman. So he spent weeks making tiny changes to each contract we offered. I explained our usual procedures and said we were happy to meet his firm's needs, but our starting contract was the same for all customers. If he had special needs, he could contact my department to make changes, as long as they were legal and fair. "So it's time to decide, Mr. Jacobs?" he asked, laughing. I just shrugged. "I guess you could say that, Mr. Langley," I replied. "I like your honesty." "Okay, you've got my business," the older man said, shaking my hand. "Send me the best contract you can, and I'll sign it." "Thank you, Mr. Langley," I said as we shook hands. We put the contract together, and Wilson Langley signed it. Afterward, he promoted Samantha and made her his executive assistant. I was surprised when Samantha called me later that week to tell me about her promotion. I asked her out for dinner to celebrate, and she said yes. That was the start of our relationship. I didn't expect much, and I was surprised to learn she didn't mind my disability. A year later, Greg retired, and Mr. Iverson promoted me to COO. I knew Greg had been preparing me, but I was surprised it happened so fast. I quickly got used to the new role, and the extra money was nice. That's when I decided to open a new savings account for my disability benefits, since I didn't need them for monthly expenses anymore. I planned to save it for retirement. I never told Sam about that account. We celebrated my promotion with dinner at Luigi's, where I proposed. After Samantha accepted my proposal, she took me to meet her parents. I knew her father was Jacob Green, one of the richest men in the state, but had never met him. He turned out to be one of the most unpleasant people I had ever met. He frowned at my walking stick before shaking my hand. I could sense his dislike. "So, Sam tells me you were a federal agent injured on duty," he said, lighting a cigar. "That's right," I confirmed. "Who did you work for?" "The Homefront Security Task Force," I answered. He raised an eyebrow. "Never heard of them," Jacob grunted. "What did you do for them? Clean the toilets?" His rude comment made me mad, but I knew he wanted that. Sam had warned me he could be rude, so I stayed calm. "I can't talk about everything I did, but I can say this. I captured bad guys," I said calmly. His eyebrows went up and his eyes widened. I smiled and went on. "At least the ones I didn't send to jail." He recovered and continued. "Looks like you missed one, though, didn't you?" he said, pointing at my leg. I chuckled. He shot me in the leg, but he didn't make it. I ended it. "They never found his whole skull," I responded with a smile. "I hate losing." The old man looked shocked for a moment, then smiled wide and laughed. "You got me there, Mike," he laughed. "You remind me of myself at your age. Welcome to the family, son," he said, shaking my hand. "I still want you to sign a prenup if you marry my daughter. No offense, just protecting her trust fund." "No offense taken, Mr. Green," I said as we shook hands. "I'm okay with a prenup as long as it's fair." "Good," he said, "and drop the Mr. Green. Call me Pop if you marry my daughter." "All right, Pop." He laughed and called Sam into the room. "Is everything okay?" Samantha asked. "I think so," her father said. "You picked a good man. A lot better than that last guy you married." Sam had told me about her first husband, a man she met in college. They were divorced. "I certainly think so," Sam said, smiling at her father. "So you two are okay?" "Absolutely. Pop," I echoed. The old man smiled and looked at his daughter. "Okay, Dad," she responded, giving him a kiss on the cheek. After she left, he looked at me. "Tell me something, Mike. Did you really mean what you said about capturing bad guys?" "Of course," I told him. His face went pale. "But they were all bad guys and deserved it. Maybe you can tell me someday, Jacob said. I'd love to, Pop, but it's all secret. I signed an agreement to keep it that way. He nodded slowly. I respect that, son, he said. The rest of our visit went quite well after that. When Sam and I left her parents' house that evening, we finally got along well. Maybe her dad just needed to see if I was someone he could trust with his daughter. Our wedding was in a big, old church, and lots of people came. We flew to Hawaii for our honeymoon. Jacob paid for it. When we got back, Sam sold her condo and moved into my place. Life was good until things started changing recently. A beep from my computer brought me back to reality. The screen showed me that the macro had finished running. I checked the final product and made sure all the numbers were correct, then saved and printed the document after writing my executive summary. I put the report in a binder, shut everything down, and left it on Jack's desk so he'd see it first thing in the morning. Jack liked to have a printed copy he could hold and read, unlike most people who preferred emails. I didn't mind. I kind of liked it myself. After washing up and combing my hair, I put on my suit jacket, grabbed my walking cane, and took a quick look around before turning off the lights. My watch showed 6:32 p.m., giving me plenty of time to buy some flowers for Sam on my way to Luigi's. I got in my car and turned on the music, letting Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull play. I loved classic rock thanks to my dad. He took me to my first concert when I was a kid. It was a Jethro Tull concert, of course. We had a great time, and my friends thought it was so cool that my dad liked rock music. Even now, Dad and I often enjoy a cigar while listening to old rock songs. At Luigi's, I saw it was 6:55 p.m., so I texted Sam to let her know I was there. She said 7-ish, which in her language meant any time between 6:55 and 7:15. I didn't see her car in the parking lot yet. K was all she texted back. No smiley faces, nothing sweet. On most nights, this wouldn't bother me, but tonight it did. For weeks, Sam had been distant and upset. I'd asked what was wrong, but she just waved me off. I hoped the flowers would make her feel better. Sighing, I got out of the car, flowers in hand, and walked into the restaurant. The woman at the door smiled, and her smile grew when she saw the flowers. Jacob's party of two, I said. Right this way, sir, she replied, grabbing 2 menus. I followed her to a table by the back wall and sat facing the room, which had become a habit of mine. She handed me a menu and poured a glass of water before leaving. I sipped my water as I looked over the menu, already knowing what I wanted. I was just passing the time, waiting for Sam. Those 20 minutes felt like hours. At 7:20, I glanced up, hoping to see her, but she wasn't there. Then I saw him. His look and actions told me he was a process server. I'd seen many like him before. The manila envelope in his hand was a dead giveaway. I hoped he'd pass by me, but I knew in my gut he wouldn't. Michael Jacobs? He asked as he reached my table. Yes, I replied. May I see some ID? Sure, I said, taking out my wallet and showing him my driver's license. He handed me the envelope and took a photo. You've been served, sir, he said. Have a good evening. He turned and left. I opened the envelope and wasn't surprised by what I saw. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I hadn't done anything wrong, but it fit with how Samantha had been acting lately. She was divorcing me, accusing me of cheating, which was a big lie. I pulled out my phone and texted, WTF? Then I heard a woman's voice. Mr. Jacobs? I saw a petite blonde in a business suit standing by my table. I discreetly turned on my phone's video app and put it back in my pocket to record our conversation, which I guessed would be tough. That depends. Who are you? I asked. She extended her hand. Allison Cartwright, Hempstead Law Group. I started to shake her hand, but stopped when she said her next words. I'm representing your wife. I awkwardly put my hand back down and stared at the papers in front of me. May I sit down? It's a free country. Go ahead. She pulled out a chair and sat across from me. A waitress named Cindy stopped by, thinking she was part of my party of two. Are you two ready to order? Cindy asked, holding a pen and pad. No, I won't be staying long, I said. Allison turned away and Cindy just nodded. Very well, sir, Cindy said. Let me know if you change your mind. I waited until she left before looking at Allison. My client asked me to get the signed papers from you, Allison said. So my soon-to-be ex-wife wants me to sign these papers without reading them or talking to my own lawyer. Is that right? I asked, Yes. Something like that, Allison quietly answered. Well, you can tell her she can forget it, I said sharply. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going home. You'll hear from my lawyer soon. Jacobs, that won't happen, Allison said. First, my client has a restraining order against you. You can't come within 500 feet of the house. Really? And she wants the house too? Yes, she does. And I believe she deserves it. Did she tell you the house is in my name only? My grandparents gave it to me before we got married, so it's not something we both own together. No, she didn't, Allison admitted. But you still think she deserves it? After what you did, yes, Allison said. She pulled an envelope from her purse and threw it on the table. I saw pictures inside. They were of two people in bed. I already knew I wasn't in them, and I guessed she did too. But Allison kept going. Mr. Jacobs, we have proof you cheated, she said. We also have video. My client asks that if you don't sign those papers, she'll send these pictures and videos to everyone you know. Your boss, your family, your friends. That's blackmail, I said. It's a serious crime here, and you're part of it too. Allison just shrugged and smirked. Blackmail is just another word for family law. Trust me, Mr. Jacobs, we can do more to you, she said. Seeing my face, Allison spoke softer. My client isn't totally unreasonable. She will let you visit the house to get your things for a few days. I've been asked to go with you. How very kind of her, I said, dripping with sarcasm. Allison flinched but stayed quiet. I decided to keep calm, took the pictures and the divorce papers, and stood up. Follow me if you must. I hadn't ordered anything, so I left a $20 tip for the waitress and left the restaurant as quickly as my cane allowed. Allison had a hard time keeping up. I got into my car, disconnected a video app, and drove off, not caring if Allison followed. I parked in front of the house. The garage was empty where Samantha usually parked. I sighed and looked at the house. Memories of my time in law enforcement flooded back. I remembered many husbands were attacked in their own homes, drugged and mistreated. Is that your plan for me, Sam? I asked aloud. Well, not today. I unlocked my glove box, pulled out my holstered 9mm gun, checked the chamber, and clipped it to my belt. As Allison parked by the curb, I went to the front door. I unlocked it but didn't open it fully. I put my keys away and took out my gun. Allison's face turned white at the sight. It's okay, I have a permit, I said, and I know how to use it. That's not needed, Mr. Jacobs, Allison stammered, staring at my gun. I'll decide what's needed. Ladies first. Keep your hands where I can see them and don't try anything. Give me a reason and I'll take you down. Understand? Yes, I understand, she said. I motioned with the gun for her to go in first. Good, go on. Open the door. I'll be right behind you. Allison nervously opened the door and stepped in. I followed, gun in one hand and cane in the other. My training kicked in as I turned off the alarm and looked around. No one else was here. I told Allison to stand in the middle of the room and to put her purse on the couch. Hands on your head, I ordered. She did. And remember what I said. Follow my orders exactly and you'll be fine. I checked the ground floor, making sure no one else was there. I opened the basement door, looked around, and returned to the front room. Upstairs. Now, I commanded. Allison reached for her purse, but I stopped her. Leave it. She obeyed and went upstairs. I followed using the stair lift I had installed after my discharge. As we slowly moved up, she looked at me. What are you looking for? She asked, making sure you and Samantha didn't leave any surprises. You think we would do that? Allison asked. It's happened before, I said. After your threat at the restaurant, I'm just being careful. We reached the top and I got back on my feet. Stay here. Don't move, I said, checking the upstairs rooms. After I was sure no one else was there, I led Allison into the master bedroom and holstered my gun. What's this? I asked, seeing a clothing bag and an overnight bag on the bed. Samantha packed some of your things to speed this up, Allison said. I looked through both bags, unsure of what they might contain. Satisfied that nothing was tampered with and no bugs were planted, I went to the closet and grabbed a few more things. I pushed the hanging clothes aside and showed my built-in fireproof safe. I opened the outer door, making sure Allison couldn't see what I was doing, and placed my hand on the black plate underneath. The scanner checked my fingerprints and the inner door unlocked. I saw the strap of $100 bills and pulled it out. I thought the $10,000 in it would be enough for a while. While there, I took some important papers and flipped a switch at the back of the safe, turning on the whole house's security cameras. From now on, everything that happened in the house would be recorded and saved online. Every movement, every word, and both sides of every phone call on the landline. I could watch and listen anytime I wanted, even in real time. This was a system I had put in while on the task force, and I hadn't used it since before my wedding. Even though the tech had been updated since then, I knew it would work and capture what I needed. I closed and locked the safe, then went back to the bedroom where Allison was waiting for me. I put everything in the overnight bag, then I took off my wedding ring and tossed it on the dresser. "Are you ready now?" Allison asked. "Yeah," I told her. "Good. I'll carry your clothing bag down if you want. I know you need your left hand." "Thank you," I said coldly. We walked downstairs and I went into my home office. "I need to handle a few things before I go." "Wait here," I told her. I went into my office, my private space. Samantha rarely came in here as she had her own office, but I wasn't taking any chances. I changed the main startup password on my computer in case Samantha tried to access it. Then I unplugged the external backup drive and set it aside to take with me. I flipped a switch in the closet that activated my emergency file destruction system. Like the cameras, it had been installed while I was in the task force but had been off for the last 7 years. If anyone broke in and tried to take my files, they would find only ashes by the time the devices finished burning them. I changed the security code on the office door and double-locked it, something I hadn't done in years. Taking one last look around, I closed the door and went back to the front room where Allison was waiting for me. "Ready now?" she asked. "Let's go," I said flatly. I locked the front door and set the alarm system before closing it. Allison turned to me after putting the bag in the trunk of my car. "Just so you know, your joint account has been frozen. Samantha has already taken out her share. Don't wait too long to sign the papers. I hope to hear from your lawyer soon," she said. "Trust me, I don't know what kind of game you and Samantha are playing, but I promise you this, I will find out and there will be consequences. Just so you know, you and your client have started a war," I said. Allison's face turned pale as she heard my words. "You're now my enemies. You started it, and I don't like to lose." I drove downtown to a hotel where I knew I could get a room for a long stay at a good price even without a booking. ISS had used this hotel many times over the years, so much that they gave us a nice discount. I paid for a week's stay in cash, thinking I would be back in my house by then. I also didn't want to make it easier for them to track me, even though I thought they were already following me. The clerk was surprised to see me hand over a small pile of $100 bills, but he said nothing as he put them in the drawer and handed me a key card. A bellhop took my luggage and followed me to the room on the 11th floor. After putting everything away, I ordered dinner from the hotel's kitchen, which stayed open until midnight. Then I took out my phone and blocked Samantha's number. I knew several divorced men who had gotten into trouble by replying to texts and calls. My next step was to call my boss, Jack Iverson, to let him know what happened. "Damn, son, that's tough," old man Iverson said. "Tell you what, I'll call Alice Hawkins and see if I can get you to see her first thing in the morning. I'll text you when I finish talking to her." "Thanks, boss. I appreciate that," I told him as we ended the call. Alice Hawkins is a family law lawyer who really dislikes cheaters. I got a text from Jack about 30 minutes later confirming my 9:30 a.m. appointment with Alice. He also offered me the company's private detective services for free. I accepted and sent a thank you text back. I took my laptop and set it up, connecting to the hotel's Wi-Fi. I first checked our joint account, and it was frozen, but not before Samantha had taken nearly 80% of it. Our joint credit cards were paid off and canceled, and our joint savings account was also mostly gone. Luckily, all the monthly bills had already been paid. I logged into my disability account, which was at a different bank. I was relieved to see it was still there. I now felt justified in not telling Samantha about that account. I next logged into my home surveillance system and saw there were 2 videos saved. I pulled up the first one and saw Samantha and Allison coming into the house. A man in a well-fitted suit was with Samantha. Interesting, I thought. Looking at the timestamp, I realized this happened shortly after I left. "Well, how did it go? Did he sign the papers?" Samantha asked after they were all inside the front room. "No, Allison said. I told you he probably wouldn't answer. Legally, he has 30 days to respond. By the way, why didn't you tell me he had a gun? A gun? Seriously? Yes, Samantha, that's what armed means, Allison said with sarcasm. I was never so scared, she added. He used to be a federal agent, Samantha explained quietly. He got shot on duty. That's why he uses a cane. I know he has a permit to carry a concealed weapon. Fantastic, Allison replied. You could have told me sooner. Wait, the man interrupted. Are you saying he pulled a gun on you? Yes, Allison said. He checked every room like he expected someone here. Who did he work for? Do you know? Not exactly, Samantha admitted. He was on some task force. He didn't talk much about it. He once told my dad he had to kill people or put them in jail. Task force? Interesting. I'll look into that, Allison mused. Great, the man said. A crazy ex-agent with a gun. What do you think he'll do when he finds out the truth? Calm down. He won't do anything, Allison assured him. Yes, he's mad, and honestly, he has a reason to be. But he's smart. He won't find out everything. Samantha, one more thing. What? Samantha asked. Why didn't you tell me this was his house before you got married? I thought it didn't matter, Samantha responded. Why? Why? Are you serious? Legally, you might not have rights to this place in a divorce? But you said I deserved it. And I meant it. But now my job is much harder, Allison snapped. So do we set him up now? The man asked. I've got a thumb drive full of images and video. I can put it on his computer. He'll be in jail before he knows it. Put that away, Allison ordered. We're not there yet. Plus, he took his backup drive and locked his office door. I think he changed the security code, too. So? The man asked. Give me a tire iron. I can break the door. Plus, Sam gave me the password to his computer. Don't even think about it, Allison warned, her face red. We have to be careful. Don't do anything rash. Hear me? Give me some time to think. I'll find out more about your husband, Samantha. I have federal contacts. In the meantime, stay calm. And don't do anything stupid, Alan. I'm still senior to you. Got it? I hear you, the man said quietly. At least now I knew his name. And I knew just how far they would go to set me up. But why? Allison left the house, and the video ended as Samantha and Alan went upstairs. The next video showed them in the master bedroom. Alan took off his jacket and tie, throwing them on my chair. He took off more clothes while Samantha undressed. When she was naked, he held her. Come on, Sam. Let's get under the covers and relax, he said with a smile. Samantha smiled back. Why not? She said. After all, this will be our bedroom soon. We should get used to it. She saw my ring on the dresser. Oh, look! Mikey left his wedding ring. How nice. Maybe I can pawn it with his other stuff. They both laughed. She tossed the ring back and returned to the bed. Which side is mine? Alan asked. Samantha pointed to the side near the door. That side, she told him. Alan got into bed. Samantha followed, climbing on top of him. This is nice, not worrying about my weight hurting your leg. Talk about devastating. This was the first time she mentioned my leg bothering her. It didn't usually hurt unless she sat on it too long, but I never told her. I thought my injury didn't bother her. Yeah, old Mikey's a cripple, Alan sneered. Well, I'm in great shape, he said, pulling her closer. Samantha giggled and moved on top of him. This is so much better, she said. Alan adjusted his position to match her movements. Oh yeah, that's it, Samantha sighed. I couldn't watch anymore. I felt sick and rushed to the bathroom. After throwing up in the toilet, I washed my face and counted to 10, taking deep breaths. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. The only woman I had ever truly loved betrayed our wedding vows, and she did it in the bed we had shared for years. I wondered if I ever really knew her. After calming down, I went back to the room and looked through the photos Allison had given me. Each photo had a date and time stamp in the lower right corner and a location: Dallas, Texas. I pulled up my calendar on my laptop. I was in Seattle on the dates these photos were taken in Dallas. I had receipts to prove it, too. That alone should prove I wasn't the man in the photos. I looked closer at the man in the pictures and noticed there were no clear shots of his face. Interesting, I thought. Then it hit me. 2 photos showed the man's right thigh. No scars. I could easily prove these photos were fake. But why? Unless, damn her, I thought. Samantha wanted to use the prenup to take everything in a divorce. According to the deal her father made, cheating meant the guilty person left with only what they brought into the marriage and no support. I looked closer at the divorce papers and saw Samantha wanted far more than the prenup said. She wanted my house, 80% of our assets, and 75% of my 401k, plus a huge amount for maintenance. There was no way she would get that much in court, which explained why Allison pushed me to sign the papers without reading them. I wanted to find out more about this Allen character. I thought he worked at Samantha's law firm, so I checked their website. I found him, Alan Williams, a junior partner who joined the firm a few months ago. I decided to have our investigators look into his background. Seeing it was almost 11:30 p.m., I shut my laptop down and prepared to go to bed, but my phone buzzed. It was Jacob Green, Samantha's father. I was surprised he would call so late, but decided to answer. "Mike, this is Jake Green. How are you, boy?" he asked in his usual gruff manner. "I've had better days, Pop," I answered. "I'll bet. I was with Langley and he told me you and Sam are getting divorced," Jacob said. Imagine my surprise when he asked how I handled the news of my daughter's divorce. I tried Sam's phone, but it went to voicemail. "Want to fill me in?" "It's true, she had me served tonight. She claims adultery." "Did you do it, boy?" Jacob asked sternly. This was just like him, direct and to the point. I admired that about him. "Hell no," I answered. "But she did." "What?" "You're telling me she cheated on you but claims you cheated on her." "That's exactly what I'm telling you, Pop." "Do you have proof?" "Sure do. You want to see it?" "Yes, I do. Where are you?" "I'm coming over right now." I told him where I was staying and he repeated it. "I'll be there in half an hour. I don't care how late it is. I want to see this so-called evidence." "I'll be here, Pop," I told him. We ended the call, and I got everything ready to show him, then made a small pot of coffee knowing he would want some. I heard a knock on the door, grabbed my pistol, and looked through the peephole. Seeing it was Pop and that he was alone, I cracked the door open. "It's just me, son. No one else is here," Pop said. I unlatched the chain and opened the door but kept my pistol handy. "Come on in," I told him. He walked in and his eyes grew wide when he saw the 9mm handgun. "What the hell, you expecting trouble?" he asked, shocked. "Always," I told him as I closed and locked the door. "Well, put that thing away, will ya?" "It makes me nervous," Pop said. I made the weapon safe and put it back in the holster close by my side. "Want some coffee before we get started?" I offered, holding out a paper cup. Pop shrugged and took the cup. "What the hell?" he said. I poured each of us a cup and we sat down. "Are you sure this is coffee?" he asked after a small sip. "That's what the package says," I answered, making him laugh. "Show me what you got," he finally said. I handed him the photos Allison gave me earlier that evening. Pop looked through them, his brows furrowed. He sighed and handed them back to me. "What do you think?" I asked. "Well, the guy in those photos does look a bit like you. But whoever he is, he ain't you." "What makes you say that?" "For one thing, I've seen you in swimming trunks. That guy doesn't have a scar on his right thigh," Pop said. "In a couple of those photos, he looks like he's putting all his weight on his right knee. I've never seen you do that." I couldn't help but smile at his observation. He was right. Since getting shot, I've never been able to put all my weight on that knee. "One other thing," I added. "Look at the date and time stamp on those photos. According to Allison, this happened in Dallas. I was in Seattle when these pictures were supposedly taken, and I have the receipts to prove it." "Interesting," the older man said. "You said you have proof that Samantha is cheating on you. I want to see it." "It's pretty graphic, Pop," I warned, and he waved off my concern. "I'm an adult, boy. There's nothing I haven't seen before. Trust me on that." "Okay, have it your way. This was from earlier tonight, after I left the house," I told him as I started the videos. He watched the video on my laptop with a serious look on his face. When it ended, I switched to the live surveillance cameras. My wife Samantha and her lover Alan were in my bed, asleep and tangled together. "I've seen enough. Turn it off, please," he said. I stopped the video and closed my laptop. "So what do you think?" I asked. "I believe you, son," he said softly after a minute. He seemed deep in thought, then asked, "Do you think this has anything to do with your work on the task force?" The idea had crossed my mind, and his question made me curious. "Why do you ask?" I replied. He took a moment before answering. "I haven't been completely honest with you. Like you, I had to keep some things secret." "I understand, Pop," I said to comfort him. "I know about the task force," he continued. "I also know about that MMAS group." MMAS, the Mutual Marital Assurance Society, was a radical organization started by a lawyer to punish unfaithful husbands. But the group did much more harm. "Can you explain, Pop?" I asked. He sighed heavily before speaking again. "Trudy isn't Samantha's biological mother, but she's the only mother Sammy knows," Pop began. I knew Trudy was Pop's second wife, but didn't ask much about it, figuring he would share if he wanted to. Now he chose to tell me. "Sam's birth mother left us when she was a little girl." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. He shook his head. "Don't be. Patricia, that was her name, got involved with the woman who started MMAS. She wanted me to fund her group, thinking I'd be okay with it because of my charitable donations. I met with Mona Larson, the group's leader, and heard her crazy ideas. I refused to help. I understood her pain, but couldn't support her actions. But Patricia not only supported it, she left us to help Mona. I got Bill Jackson to handle the divorce. She took back her maiden name, Witherspoon, and moved to Washington, D.C. to work with Mona." "Wait, you said Witherspoon?" I asked. "Yes. Why?" "I remember hearing about a Pat Witherspoon who died in custody a few months before I got shot. Was that your first wife?" I asked. "Yes," Pop said quietly. "She didn't just die, she was murdered. By Mona Larson. She had a poison capsule in her neck. Mona sent a message that her services were no longer needed, which triggered a hypnotic suggestion. Patricia tapped her neck, breaking the capsule, and died instantly." "I didn't know that," I said. "It wasn't my case." "It's not relevant now," Pop said. "By then I had remarried. Trudy can't have kids, but she adopted Sammy. Anyway, MMAS has a history of targeting former agents. That's why I asked if you think they are involved." "I had considered it," I admitted, "but I thought MMAS was destroyed." "Technically, yes, but there are still rogue agents being caught," Pop explained. "They recently arrested some former contractors." "Wow," I said. "I hadn't heard that. So how do you know all this?" "After Patricia left, I filed for divorce. Bill Jackson was still handling family law then and took my case. When I told him what happened, he knew about Mona and the group. He had this wild idea, and I liked it. We put together a plan and funding, bought that old Army base you know as Fort Apache, and got federal support. You know the rest," Pop said. "So when we first met, you already knew who I was," I guessed. "I knew everything about you, son," Pop said, "including your reputation as a tough guy who doesn't take crap from anyone." "So you were just messing with me that day," I joked. Pop smiled and nodded. "It's what I do best," he admitted. "Besides, I wanted to see if the rumors were true. So, what are your plans now?" "I have an appointment with a lawyer tomorrow. I want to lift the restraining order, then evict Sam from my house." "Restraining order?" Pop asked, stunned. "She filed a restraining order?" "Yeah, can you believe it? Then I'm counterfiling for adultery. I'll also invoke the prenuptial you had us sign. I plan to ensure someone ends up in jail." "Jail?" Pop asked. "Yes. Last I checked, extortion, conspiracy, and perjury are still illegal. So is making fake evidence. Things may have changed, but not that much." Pop laughed at that. "Good luck. Just do me one favor, please," Pop said. "What's that?" "Do what you need to do, but try not to hurt Sammy too much," he begged softly. I nodded, understanding his concern. "I'll try my best," I promised. "But I do have some questions if you don't mind." "Sure, go ahead." "What can you tell me about Sam's first husband?" I asked. I had never questioned Samantha about him, figuring it was in the past. Pop sighed and nodded. "His name is Alvin Morrison. He's an accountant. Last I heard, he worked for a finance company downtown. He and Sam met in college and got married after they graduated. Seemed like a nice enough guy. Bit of a weakling, though, if you ask me," Pop said. "What happened?" I asked. "Sam says he cheated on her," Pop answered. "She threw him out and filed for divorce based on their prenup. I never heard from him again." "Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?" I asked. Pop's eyes widened and his eyebrows went up as he looked at me. "Now that you mention it, yeah, it does," he finally said. "You think she set him up too?" "Don't know until I look into it, but it seems possible, doesn't it?" "I suppose it does. Which means... Pop started. At this point, absolutely nothing, I interrupted. I'm just thinking out loud now, but we do need to check it out. I agree, Pop said as he stood up to leave. Keep me in the loop. We'll see, Pop, I said sadly. He seemed to understand, but I could tell he was let down. We shook hands and I walked him to the door. Before leaving, he turned to me. I'm sorry about all this, son, Pop said quietly. This was the first time I had heard him apologize for anything, and I knew it didn't come easy. You're a good man and don't deserve this. I appreciate that, Pop. Apology accepted. One last thing, son. Stay in touch, all right? Of course, I said. To my surprise, he hugged me like a father would, then left. I closed the door, went back to bed, and went to sleep. The next day, I woke up earlier than usual, got ready, and gathered my things for the day. I didn't bother checking the surveillance system. I could always look at it later. After grabbing a quick breakfast and a coffee, I headed to the office, listening to some classic music. When I arrived, my boss, Jack Iverson, the CEO of Iverson Security Services, waved me into his office. I saw Terry Torres, the head of investigative services, in his office, so I went to Jack's corner office. Morning, Mike, Jack said. I wasn't expecting you until after your appointment with Alice. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to come in, I explained. I understand, Jack said. I briefed Terry on your situation. I hope you don't mind. Not at all. In fact, I have a few leads that might be useful, I said. Oh? Terry asked. I learned last night that the man Samantha is seeing is Alan Williams, a partner with the Hempstead Law Group. I couldn't print a picture, but he's on their website. If that doesn't work, you can Google jerk. Maybe you can get a picture there. Both men laughed at that. That's a start. Anything else? Terry asked. Yeah. Can you find an Alvin Morrison? I believe he works for a finance company here in town, I said. And who is he exactly? Terry asked. He's Samantha's first husband. I want to know everything about their divorce. It should be a public record, so it'll be easy to check. I'd appreciate it if you could also verify his job. If he's in town, that should be easy to do, Terry said. Just curious, though. What are your intentions? I'd like to talk to him about his divorce. I have a feeling this isn't the first time Samantha's done this, I said. Terry nodded and made notes. One other thing. I need to know everything you can find out about these photos, I said, handing Terry one of the pictures from the envelope I got the previous day. Damn. You don't ask for much, do you, boss? Terry asked, sarcastically, looking at the photo. Jack looked at it after Terry handed it over. You weren't even in Dallas when this was taken, Jack observed. Assuming the date stamp is correct? Nope, I wasn't, I replied. The photo could take some time, but I should have some answers on the rest by the end of the day, Terry told me. Don't worry, Mike. I'll get my best people on this and forward whatever we find to you and Alice. Thanks, Terry. I really appreciate that, I said. I owe you. He smiled at that. Buy me a cold drink and we'll call it even, he joked. Well, I better get to it. I'll be in touch. Thanks, Terry, Jack said as Terry left. I echoed the sentiment and Jack signaled for me to close the door. He looked concerned before speaking. You think this might be a rogue MMAS operation, Mike? You know how those folks are about getting revenge, he said. I don't know, Jack. I thought that at first, but I'm not sure. I did learn one interesting thing, though. What's that? Jack asked. Samantha's birth mother was Pat Witherspoon, one of MMAS's top field operatives. That is interesting. She's been dead for quite a while now, from what I heard. Tell you what, I'll reach out to Bill Jackson and Oscar Warren and see if they've heard anything. Oscar's pretty much in charge over there at Fort Apache now, Jack said. That's what I heard, too. Tell you what, Mike, you've got a good team backing you up on this. Let them handle it. Meanwhile, take some time off, maybe go fishing or something, Jack said with concern. I appreciate that, Jack, but I can't just sit around while Samantha is playing me, I told him. I understand how you feel, Mike. Really, I do. But maybe you should sit this one out. You're not a field agent anymore, Jack said. I know, but I can't just sit back and do nothing. I'm not built that way. No, you're not. And that's one of the things I admire about you. But you're not much good to me in the shape you're in now, Mike, Jack said. We've got your back. Take some time off anyway. You've earned it. When we learn something, you'll be the first to know. I looked at Jack and saw he was about to tell me to take time off. He was right. I needed a break. I had good people supporting me. After thinking about it, I nodded. "You're right, Jack," I said. "I just need to grab a few things from my desk before I see Alice." "Smart move, Mike," Jack said with a small smile. "Go on, do what you need to do. We'll stay in touch, and keep me updated." "I will," I told him. "Thanks." I went to my office and pulled up my expense report with the receipts for my Seattle trip. I copied 2 videos to a thumb drive, set my out-of-office email reply, and packed my stuff. As I left, Jack smiled and nodded. I smiled back and exited. I arrived at Alice Hawkins' building, parked, and went inside. I was about 15 minutes early, but I knew Alice wouldn't mind. I checked in with the receptionist, who sent me to the waiting area. A few minutes later, she led me to Alice's office. "Good morning, Mr. Jacobs," Alice said, offering a hand. "Mr. Iverson said you would come today. Would you like a cup of coffee? The shop downstairs makes a great caramel mocha." "That would be great, Miss Hawkins," I said. "Please." I reached for my wallet, but Alice stopped me. "My treat. Sally, can you grab 2 large caramel mochas and something for yourself?" Alice said, handing some money to the receptionist. "Of course, Miss Hawkins." "Thank you," the young receptionist said before leaving. Alice motioned to a chair and I sat down. "Mr. Iverson told me you've been served with divorce papers," Alice said. "That's true, Miss Hawkins," I replied. "Please call me Alice. Do you have the papers with you?" "Yes," I said, opening my briefcase. I handed her the envelope. Alice looked through the papers, frowning. When she finished, she set the papers down and looked at me, her face serious. "There are some serious accusations here," Alice said. "Is there any proof of cheating? Because I don't represent cheaters." "There is proof, but it doesn't involve me. If you want, I'll show you. If not, I'll find someone else," I said firmly. She hesitated. "Please, Mr. Jacobs, show me." I handed her the envelope with photos. Her eyes widened as she looked through them. She shook her head when she finished. "Can you dispute this?" she asked. "Absolutely," I said, standing up with my cane. Alice looked shocked as I unfastened my belt and dropped my trousers. "Mr. Jacobs, please, that isn't necessary," she said. "I'll decide what's necessary," I insisted. Her eyes fell on my right thigh, now visible. "Oh my," she gasped. "I almost lost this leg serving my country. Spent months in the hospital going through surgery and therapy to walk again," I said. "I still can't put weight on that knee like the man in those photos. Do you believe me now, or should I go somewhere else?" "You're saying these photos are fake?" Alice asked. "I'm not saying anything. I'm telling you, those photos are fake. I have expense reports and receipts showing I was in Seattle, Washington when the photos were taken. Even I can't be in 2 places at once. Now, will you represent me or do I go elsewhere?" "I'll take your case, Mr. Jacobs," Alice finally said, handing the photos back. "Now please pull your pants back up." I pulled up my trousers and fastened my belt as Sally returned with our coffee. She looked at me, puzzled. "Is everything all right?" she asked. "Just proving a point." "Everything is fine," I said before sitting down. Sally looked at Alice for confirmation. "Everything is fine, Sally." "Thank you," Alice said, taking the change from her. Sally smiled and left the office. Alice looked at me, then sipped her coffee. "I'm sorry for doubting you, Mr. Jacobs. I hope we won't repeat that." "Please call me Mike, and I accept your apology. I hope I won't need to drop my trousers in court, but I will if needed," I said. Alice smiled. "I see you have quite the reputation, Mike, and no, you probably won't have to do that in court. But it's good to know you're willing to go the extra mile. What else do you have for me?" I pulled out my phone and showed Alice the video of my argument with Allison. She frowned as she watched, then handed the phone back. "So your wife hired Allison Cartwright," Alice said. "She has quite the reputation, too. Ethics aren't a problem for her, it seems. I'd like a copy of that video. It'll help with my complaint against her." "Complaint?" "Yes. The video shows ethics violations and maybe a crime. Plus, she went with you to your house without a police escort, which is unusual. What else do you have?" I handed her the thumb drive with the 2 videos from my surveillance system. Alice looked at both videos, smiling. "Well?" I asked. "More evidence for my complaint," Alice said, then added, "Those photos accuse you of aiming a gun at Miss Cartwright. Did you really pull a gun on someone from the court?" Yes, I did. Why? Alice asked. She listened carefully as I shared my experiences in the task force. And you thought maybe your wife or Miss Cartwright had someone waiting to ambush you? Something like that, I said. I was once shot in a similar situation. I see, Alice said. Lucky for you, Mike. I know about the task force and some tactics used by MMS. I've helped many men your task force has supported. Miss Cartwright will likely try to make a fuss. Don't worry, I have it handled. Thank you, I said. So let me get this straight. You own the house you shared with Samantha, right? Yes, it was given to me by my grandparents long before I met Samantha, I explained. What about your bank accounts? Samantha took 80% of our money and Allison had them frozen. Alice looked shocked. She froze the accounts after your wife took 80%? Correct, I said. There was no reason for that except to slow you down and stop you from getting legal help, Alice said. Why are they doing this to you? That's the big question, isn't it? I asked sarcastically. Hopefully your company's investigators will find some answers, Alice said. Mr. Iverson told me Mr. Torres will be on the case. I look forward to what he discovers. Me too, I told her. First things first. I need to lift that restraining order and get you back in your house. Then I need to get your money back. In the meantime, I'll respond to this petition with one of our own. Do you have a copy of your prenuptial agreement? Yes, I do, I said, pulling it out of my briefcase. Alice looked it over, set it aside, and handed me a checklist. It might take a few days to sort this out. Work on the tasks in this checklist. Are you okay for money until we fix your accounts? Yes, I'll be okay, I replied. All right, Mike, I have it from here. Just remember, don't do anything stupid in the meantime. I don't want to bail you out of jail. No problem, Alice, I said with a laugh. I've got it under control. No, you don't, she remarked. Not yet. Your wife has served you divorce papers, falsely accused you, kicked you out of your house, taken most of your money, and wants to take more. But we will get things under control. We exchanged contact information and ended the meeting. On my way out, I stopped at Sally's desk and paid a retainer fee. Then I left, feeling like I had some control over the situation. I stopped for lunch and took a call from Jack while eating my cheeseburger. How did things go with Alice? He asked. Pretty well, I answered. I hope things start moving soon. Good, Jack responded. I spoke with Bill and Oscar. They don't know much right now, but Oscar will visit you later today. He will want some background info. I told him where you are staying. Sure, he will, I said. Anything else? Terry has some info for you. He's sending an email with his summary. Turns out Miss Cartwright handled Samantha's first divorce, too. Interesting, I said. I thought you'd say that, Jack said. I can hear the TV in the background. Are you at that new sports bar? Yeah, enjoying a mega cheeseburger, I told him. Not bad, actually. Maybe I'll try it sometime, Jack said. Take care and don't let me see you tomorrow, got it? Got it, boss, I replied. Good. Nice job on that report. Things are looking up in the West. Thanks, I noticed too. All right, talk to you soon, Mike. We ended the call and I went back to my burger. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Terry. Alvin Morrison, financial planner, Tri-States Financial Services, with an address and phone number. I replied, Thanks, that was fast. We're the best, boss, he replied. I gave a thumbs-up emoji and called Alvin's number. To my surprise, he answered right away. Thank you for calling Tri-States Financial Services, the best in the business. I'm Alvin Morrison. How can I help you today? I was surprised. It sounded like a recording, but it was a person. Hi, I'm Mike Jacobs. I'd like to meet with you soon, I said. Sure, Mr. Jacobs. I have an opening at 1 p.m. Does that work for you? I checked my watch. It was a bit tight, but doable. Yes, that works. See you at 1 p.m. Thanks, I said. Looking forward to it, Mr. Jacobs, Alvin said cheerfully before ending the call. I did a quick search on how much financial planners charge per hour, making a mental note. I had no plan to buy any services just yet, but I would pay him for his time and the information he could give me. Wrapping up my lunch, I headed out to my car. As I drove away, I heard a line from an old Tull song on the radio. The witch's promise was coming. Believing he listened while laughing, you flew. You got that right, Ian, I said to myself. I reached the building where Alvin worked, parked my car, and went inside. I introduced myself to the receptionist, who took me to Alvin's office. He was a tall, thin man, a bit younger than me, dressed in a business suit. He stood up, smiled, and shook my hand. "Good afternoon, Mr. Jacobs," he greeted me. "Would you like a cup of coffee?" "Sure," I replied, sitting down. The receptionist took my coffee order and came back with a steaming mug. I thanked her and took a sip. It was good. "So, Mr. Jacobs, what brings you here today? Are you looking to invest or set up a retirement plan? We have great packages, and I can ensure you a good return on your investment," Alvin said, smiling the whole time. I wondered if he ever stopped smiling. "Please, call me Mike," I said, trying to make things more friendly. "Okay, Mike. Feel free to call me Alvin," he said, still smiling. "Thanks, Alvin," I answered. "I'm not here to buy anything. I need to ask you about your divorce from Samantha Green." Alvin's smile vanished and his face turned serious. "I'm sorry, Mr. Jacobs, but I can't talk about that. I think you should leave now," Alvin said coldly. I took out a small stack of $100 bills from my pocket and counted 3 bills in front of him. His eyes widened. "I know this is hard for you, Alvin. I want to pay you for your time and any information you can give me. I believe financial planners here make about $40 an hour. I'm offering you $300 for an hour," I said, holding the 3 $100 bills. I could see him thinking it over. Then he softened a bit. "That's very generous of you, Mike," he finally said. "Just one question before I decide whether to take your offer." "Anything," I told him. "Are you a private investigator or a cop?" "No, Alvin, I'm not. I used to be a federal agent, but that was a long time ago. Before this," I said, pointing to my leg. He looked at my leg and the cane, then nodded. "All right," he said. "I accept your offer." I handed him the money. "Thank you." "You're welcome. Mind if I record our talk? I want to make sure I get everything right." "That's fine," he said, shrugging. I took out my phone and started the recorder. "Interview with Alvin Morrison," I said into the recorder, including the date and time. "So, Alvin, what can you tell me?" "Not much to tell," he began. "I met Samantha in college. We had a few classes together, and I liked her. We dated, fell in love, and got married right after college. She introduced me to her father." "Jacob Green?" I asked. "Yes. He didn't like me from the start. I knew he was rich, but I didn't think he would be so blunt. He used a lot of bad words," Alvin recalled. "Everything was fine for about 5 years. We talked about having kids and buying a house, the usual stuff young couples talk about. One day I came home and saw her with another woman at the kitchen table. I thought she was a friend from the law firm where Samantha worked." "Hempstead?" I asked. Alvin nodded. "Yes, that one." Anyway, I walked in and said hello. The other woman handed me an envelope and said I was served. I saw that Samantha was accusing me of cheating. "Did you ever cheat on her?" "No, never. I loved Samantha with all my heart. I know I'm not the most handsome guy or the strongest, but I loved her and would never hurt her." "Did they have proof?" I asked. Samantha's attorney handed me a smaller envelope with photos. She said there were more photos and a video. She threatened to send them to my friends, family, and co-workers unless I signed the papers right then. Of course, I refused to sign until I saw a lawyer. Samantha had a restraining order and said I had to leave immediately. She even had some of my things packed. Her lawyer also threatened to use other evidence against me if I didn't sign. I left and tried to check into a motel, but none of my credit cards worked. That's when I found out that Samantha emptied our bank accounts. We had over $100,000 saved up, but it was all gone. I stayed with my parents. They loaned me enough money to see a lawyer, but he was no help. I went back to our place to get more of my stuff and try to talk to Samantha. I forgot about the restraining order. She was in bed with some guy when I got there. I lost it and went after him. He was much bigger than me and beat me up badly. I had to be taken to the hospital. When I woke up, I was handcuffed to the bed. They told me I was under arrest for breaking the restraining order and possession of child pornography. I was taken straight to jail after leaving the hospital. The detective found out that the pictures on my phone were added after I was knocked out, so they dropped the charges. But the damage was done. I lost my job, and my life fell apart. What about the charge for breaking the restraining order? That was fake, too. There was no real restraining order. The paper Samantha's lawyer gave me was never filed in court. But I still spent a weekend in jail, Alvin said, spitting out the words. What happened then? They ruined me as much as they could, Alvin hissed. By the end, I had nothing. No money, no job, but I still had to pay maintenance and the condo mortgage. I took any job just to get by. Now, I'm starting to see some hope. Do you still have the pictures they claimed showed you cheating? I asked. Yes, I do, Alvin replied, opening his briefcase. He pulled out a small, worn envelope and handed it to me. You keep them in your briefcase? I asked, surprised. I live with my parents, and I'd be embarrassed if they saw them. I always mean to throw them out, but I haven't yet. I nodded and looked through the pictures. What I saw shocked me. The background and poses were just like the photos Allison showed me. Even the woman looked the same. Only two things were different. The date and time stamps, and the man in the photos was shorter and thinner. Other than that, the pictures looked the same. Can I keep these for a while? I know someone who can look at them closely. You can keep them, Alvin said. Thanks, I said. Have you thought about taking legal action against your ex-wife and her lawyer? I talked to a few lawyers, but they said they couldn't help. I didn't have enough money for their fees. I see. How are you doing now? I was a wreck for years. I haven't dated anyone since. It's hard to trust people now, and I'm still in debt. At least you don't have to pay alimony or the mortgage anymore, I said, trying to give him hope. But Alvin looked confused and shocked. What are you talking about? He asked. I've been paying her almost $3,000 a month for nearly 8 years. I still have over 2 years of alimony and 18 years on the mortgage. Didn't anyone tell you that Samantha remarried 6 years ago and sold the condo around the same time? I asked. No, Alvin said, shaking his head. No one told me. Her lawyer had the money taken right from my pay. I quickly did the math. Samantha owed him more than $210,000. There's more to this, I thought. Terry would need to check Samantha's financial records. She likely had a lot of money somewhere. Maybe she was sharing the money she took from Alvin with Allison. Can you ask your HR department where the money is going? I asked. I'll ask, Alvin said. What if they won't tell me? Then I'll ask my lawyer to get a court order for that information. This sounds very shady. I'm not a lawyer, Alvin, but you might have a strong case against your ex-wife and her lawyer. How do you know this? Alvin asked. Because Samantha tried something similar with me yesterday, I said. Will you testify in court about your experience? Absolutely, Alvin said, ready for a fight. Do you think she could go to jail for this? It's possible, I said. Then yes, I'll testify, Alvin said. I'll have my lawyer contact you if that's okay. More than okay, Alvin said. I stood up with my cane. Alvin stood with me and shook my hand. We'll be in touch, I told him. I left and went back to my hotel room. There, I took out the photos Alvin gave me and compared them to the ones I had. They were nearly the same. I grabbed my phone and called Terry. Terry, he said when he answered. Can you come to my hotel in about an hour? I asked. I'll be there, he said. What's up? I have something for you to look at. You know I love a challenge, Terry replied with a smile in his voice. Great. See you soon, I said. I checked my home surveillance system. Nothing new since Samantha and Alan left that morning. Then I called Alice. Yes, Mr. Jacobs? She asked when she picked up. I told her about my meeting with Alvin. I checked the restraining order against you, and it is real. But I want to speak with Mr. Morrison, she said, gasping in surprise. We ended the call after I gave her Alvin's contact info. By then, Terry was knocking on my door. What's up, boss? He asked as he walked in. I showed him the pictures Alvin gave me, and he looked shocked. Can you explain this? I asked. I've heard of this, but never seen it for real, Terry said, and compared the two photos. Heard of what? I asked. Fake photos, Terry said. Someone can make fake photos and videos that look real. Here it looks like they use the same background and the same people to create fake photos of spouses. Pretty lazy, if you ask me. You think we can prove these are fakes to a judge? I asked. Yeah, Terry said. I know some photo experts who can probably prove it, but it would be easier if we had the originals, which are likely digital. All right, take a couple from each batch and see what you can find, I told him. Anything else? Yeah, I looked into Williams for you. He joined Hempstead not too long ago from New York. He's married with 2 kids. Terry showed me a family portrait. There he was. Alan, a pretty blonde woman, and 2 good-looking young children, probably not more than 7 years old. For a lawyer, He's pretty dumb, cheating on a beautiful family like this, I said. Tell me about it. Her name is Rhonda. She's a state representative and comes from a wealthy family. Which means she's still in New York, and I'll bet there's a prenup involved, I said. Yep, on both counts, Terry said. I couldn't help but smile. Oh yeah, Alan Williams would pay dearly. What else? I asked Terry. I looked into Morrison's divorce like you asked. Pretty clear based on the paperwork. Samantha filed for divorce because of cheating. The prenup was enforced, and she got 10 years of spousal support unless she remarries, and Alvin was ordered to pay the mortgage on their condo, Terry said. The order says if the condo is sold, the money should be split equally between the two. So he's been paying Samantha for a mortgage that no longer exists, and support to someone who doesn't deserve it. Any idea where the money is going? I asked. Cartwright set up a separate account and had the funds automatically taken out of Morrison's paychecks, Terry said. I couldn't find anything on that account. I don't know how Morrison has managed all this time on what was left. At least they didn't have children, I said. If I can get you the account information, can you look into it, find out how much she's got in it? Of course, but it may take a court order or a subpoena to get any details, Terry explained. Do what you have to do. Get with Alice if you need something legal. I assume you've already told her all this. I have, Terry said. And I'm sure you have people watching Samantha? Of course, Terry said. You know they have people watching you as well? I figured that, I admitted. I don't care. Let them waste their time and money following me. Terry chuckled at that. Well, I'd better get back to it. I'll send you an email with what I've found so far, he said. Sounds good. I look forward to your report, I told him as I shook his hand. And good work, Terry. He smiled at the compliment. Thanks, boss. That means a lot, he said. I noticed the extra spring in his step as he left the room and smiled. Terry was a good man, and I meant what I said. I sat down at my laptop and logged into the home surveillance system, but there wasn't anything new. So I sat back on the bed, watched TV, and thought about my next steps. I hated not being able to do anything but wait on other people. I'd always been the one to take charge, and this waiting was killing me. Sometime later, I heard a knock at the door. I grabbed my pistol and cane, got off the bed, and went to the door. Who's there? I called out. Oscar Warren, a man's voice said from the other side. I looked through the peephole and saw him holding up his credentials. Proby? Is that really you? That's Special Agent Proby to you, Mr. Jacobs, Oscar said with a smile. I cracked the door and saw his smiling face. He looked a bit older, but still in good shape. I opened the door and let him in. Good to see you, Oscar, I said, lowering the pistol. Good to see you too, you old dog, he laughed. Do you remember how to make that thing safe? I chuckled at that. I think I can manage. Looks like they'll make anyone a special agent these days, I joked. Well, technically, I'm actually a deputy assistant special agent in charge, but special agent is fine, so I hear you're a big-time executive now. Yeah, so they tell me, I quipped. So what brings you out here from Fort Apache? Pat Witherspoon, Oscar replied. I hadn't heard that name in ages. You know, she was the one who turned my first wife, the one who told me what my punishment would be if I ever cheated on Renee. She died in my custody when Mona Larson played her little mind trick. All these years, I never knew she was Jake Green's ex-wife, and here you are, married to her daughter. I had no idea, I told him. No, of course you didn't. None of us knew her family ties at the time, Oscar said. We ended up cremating her body after the autopsy. No one even claimed her body. Kinda sad, don't you think? Given who she was with, all the pain and suffering she caused, no, I don't. As far as I'm concerned, she was the one who killed Renee with her drugs and her games, Oscar said bitterly. And I still have a hospital full of her victims. Men who might never heal from the pain and torture Pat's guys caused them. You were there, Mike. You saw it all. Remember when you got shot by one of them? I'll never forget, I said softly. Do you think her daughter is following her mom's path? Oscar asked. I'm not sure. She doesn't exactly match the type. A lot of the old types don't fit anymore, Mike. Things have changed. They don't use the term MMS now. They call it sisterhood. Have you ever heard Samantha or her lawyer use that word? No, never, I said. Tell me if you do, okay? Oscar asked. Sure, I said. Like I said, Samantha doesn't seem to fit the old type. But her lawyer, Allison Cartwright, she might... Cartwright. I don't remember that name, Oscar said, thinking. I'll get Wiseman and his team to look into it. He's still with the task force? Oh, yeah, Oscar said with enthusiasm. That is when he and his wife aren't scaring off guys who flirt with her. I think Amy's been hit on by almost every manager at her work. I laughed at that. I had met Ron Wiseman before and saw him and his wife use their wheel of death. He even showed me a few knife tricks. Like Mr. T said, I pitied the fools who tried to flirt with Amy. So what's happening? Anything new since I talked to your boss? Oscar asked. And I told him what I had learned since this morning. He was very interested when I mentioned the photos. I wonder if Cartwright has done this to others besides you and Morrison, Oscar said. I'll tell Wiseman. This sounds like a crime or two. Maybe not enough for the task force, but someone might go to jail. I'll get Wiseman on it and let you know. Thanks, Oscar. I appreciate it a lot, I said. What are friends for? Oscar replied with a smile. Well, I need to go. Rita's making a pot roast, and I'll be in big trouble if I'm not home for dinner. That's right. You married the boss's daughter. I noticed you've gained a few pounds since the last time I saw you. How are things going? Great, Oscar said. I haven't been this happy in years. Well, give my best to her and the kids, I told him. I will, Mike. Thanks, Oscar said as he stood up. No, thank you, my friend, I told him as we shook hands. I walked him to the door and we said our goodbyes. I looked at the time and decided to get some dinner, so I took my cane and went to the restaurant downstairs. After a nice steak, I bought a cigar from the gift shop, sat by the pool with a drink, and relaxed. I returned to my room a couple of hours later feeling somewhat relaxed. After checking the time, I figured Samantha would be home, so I freshened up, turned on my laptop, and logged into my home surveillance system. Sam had just walked into the house with Alan and Allison. So what's so important that you couldn't tell me at the office? Samantha asked Allison. I got a report from the private investigator. Your husband went to see Alice Hawkins this morning, Allison told her. So? He went to see a lawyer. We knew he would. You don't get it, Samantha. Alice is tough, and the first thing she'll do is cancel that restraining order. And knowing her, she'll be out for blood. There's more. Mike talked to your ex-husband this afternoon, Allison said. I saw Samantha's face turn pale. What do you think Alvin told him? Samantha asked, now worried. My guess is everything, Allison said. And if your husband figures it out, we could be in big trouble. There's more. My contact told me Mike was part of something called the Homefront Security Task Force. A real tough guy. He wasn't joking when he told your father he killed people, she added, causing Samantha to recoil. He even got several medals for his work, Allison continued. The PI also said he was visited today by one of his old colleagues, Oscar Warren. I don't know what they talked about, but I have a good guess. Why is that so important? Samantha asked, still confused. If your husband has the help of a serious government team that handles family issues, we're in big trouble, Allison said. Maybe it's time to set Mike up, Alan said. I still have that drive with lots of bad stuff on it. Can you imagine what'll happen if they find child porn on his computer? Forget it, Alan, Allison said. It's too late to plant anything on his computer now. He hasn't used it for almost 24 hours. An expert would see through that quickly. All right, then I'll email it to him, Alan said. That might work, Allison said, but be very careful. Make sure it can't be traced back to your computer. What about the account? Samantha asked. There's a lot of money in that account. I'll handle that, Allison said. What if all this doesn't work? Samantha asked, fear showing on her face. We have too much to lose here. If this doesn't work and if we can't control Mike, we'll have to make sure he has an accident. One he doesn't survive, Allison said firmly. Do you understand what I'm saying? Samantha slowly nodded, understanding what Allison meant. And do you understand, Alan? Yeah, I get it, he said. I understood too. The three of them planned to kill me if everything else failed. The woman I had promised my life and love to had just agreed to see me dead. All for the love of money. She, of all people, should have known that I don't like losing an argument, and I wasn't going to lose this one. I took out my phone and made my first call to Ryan Harper, an old friend of mine in the FBI. Special Agent Harper, he answered. Ryan, it's Mike Jacobs, I said. How'd you like an exclusive? Mike, you sly dog. I was just thinking about you, Ryan replied. What's this exclusive you got? Conspiracy to murder and extort, for starters, I said. Oh yeah? Who's the target? Me? You? Are you sure? Ryan asked, surprised. Absolutely, I replied. I have them on video. Want me to send it to you? Send it now, and I'll call Sheriff Pratt. We're old friends. You have my email, right? Yes, I do. Thanks, Ryan, I appreciate it, I said, getting ready to send the video. I typed the email and hit send. It's on its way now. I got it, Ryan said a moment later. I could hear the video playing. Wow! I can't believe Samantha would do that to you. Hang on, let me call the sheriff. I heard him talking on another phone, then he came back. Okay, Sheriff Pratt is sending someone to your place now. What's going on? Ryan listened quietly as I told him the events of the last few days. I heard him whistle when I was done. That's cold, he said. I thought so too, I replied. Where are you now? Are you safe? Do I need to send someone to guard you? Ryan asked. I gave him my location and assured him I'd be all right. He responded when I finished. Well, this doesn't look like a federal case, at least not yet. But if you need anything, call me. You hear me, Mike? I got it. Thanks again, Ryan. We ended the call. I looked at my laptop to see the 3 conspirators still talking. What about the ex? Do we get rid of him too? Alan asked. No, Allison said firmly. Not yet. It would look too suspicious for 2 of Samantha's husbands to die so soon. Tomorrow, I'll start moving the money we've been taking from him and the others to an offshore account. Then we'll see if Alvin is still useful. So I thought, there are other victims. This should be interesting. You seem like you've done this before, Alan said. Allison smirked. Let's just say this isn't my first time, she replied. I watched them talk for about half an hour, then saw flashing lights outside. I smiled, knowing their plan was about to hit a roadblock. A little later, I heard a knock at the door. Sheriff's Department, open up, a man's voice called out. Samantha, Allison, and Alan looked at each other, confused. You'd better open the door, Allison told Samantha. Sam did as she was told and opened the door. Yes, Samantha asked. Samantha Jacobs? The deputy asked. That's me, Samantha said. Deputy Smith. This is Deputy Jones. May we come inside, please? Of course, Deputy, Samantha said. 2 deputies entered the living room, 1 male and 1 female. Alan Williams, Allison Cartwright? Smith asked. The other 2 nodded. We're here to take you 3 into custody. You're under arrest. Turn around, hands behind your back. Under arrest? For what? Allison asked. Conspiracy to murder and extort, Smith said. Sam, Allison, and Alan looked at each other confused as Smith read them their rights. How? Shut up, Alan, Allison hissed. Say nothing. To no one, got it? Your husband must have planted some bugs in the house, Alan told Samantha. Did you know about that? No, I didn't, Samantha said. Shut up, both of you, Allison ordered. Say nothing. When we get to the county jail, I'll arrange for our lawyer. You have the right to remain silent, so use it. The deputies finished their work and led the 3 conspirators out of my house. The video ended when the door closed. I picked up my phone and made my second call, this time to Alice Hawkins, my lawyer. What's going on, Mike? Why are you calling me after hours? Alice asked. I just wanted to let you know Sam and her 2 partners have been arrested, I said. Arrested? For what? Conspiracy to murder and extort. I have their plan on video, I told Alice. Oh my God, Alice exclaimed. Can you send me a copy of that video? Already on it, I said as I prepared to email the video. Well, this will help when I go to see Judge Banks about the restraining order, Alice said. Would that be Judge Kenneth Banks? I asked. Yes. Why? Do you know him? I helped him about 10 years ago, I explained. Helped was a term we used in the task force for aiding targeted husbands. Before he became a judge, I added. Couldn't that be a problem? Have you done anything for him since then? Alice asked. No, I said. Then it shouldn't be an issue. He may not even remember your name, Alice said. Maybe, but I doubt he forgot what I did. Well, don't worry about it. If he asks, I'll tell him. Otherwise, we won't mention it, she said. When do you go before him? I asked Alice. Tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock. I also have a motion to unfreeze your accounts and a demand that Samantha return at least 35% of what she took. I'll argue those in front of Judge Banks. Hopefully, with Samantha in custody, I'll have good news for you by this time tomorrow. I look forward to that, I said. As do I. Get a good night's sleep, Mike. I'll talk to you tomorrow, I said, ending the call. It was time for my third call of the evening, this one to Wilson Langley, who was Samantha's boss and also the boss of Allison and Alan. I had Wilson's personal cell number because I had helped get him as a client. I had only called him on this number once before after he signed the contract with ISS. Langley, the older man answered quickly. Mr. Langley, this is Mike Jacobs from ISS. How are you tonight, sir? I'm having a nice steak dinner with friends, he replied. I could hear the buzz of conversation in the background, like he was at the country club where my father often ate. Why are you calling, Mr. Jacobs? Is there an issue with the security at my office? No problem with your office, Mr. Langley, but there is a problem with 3 of your employees. Oh? What kind of problem? A legal one. They've been arrested, I said. They're on their way to the county jail right now. What? Langley hissed. I could tell he was covering the phone to speak to his guests. Then he continued, Hold on, let me find a quieter spot. I heard him move away from the table, and then he came back on the line. What's going on, Mr. Jacobs? My wife, Samantha, your executive assistant, has filed for divorce from me, I explained. Yes, I know about that. I have video of her, Alan Williams, and Allison Cartwright planning to kill me. I also have evidence of them trying to blackmail me. I told him calmly. Because of our business relationship, I thought you should know. Damn, he swore. You have proof of this? Yes, sir. I have video from my own home. I believe there's more to it, and I'm investigating. Are you accusing me or my firm of any crimes? Langley asked quietly. I have no evidence against you or your firm, Mr. Langley. Not at this time, but all 3 accused work for you, I said. Yes, they do, at least for now, but everyone gets a chance to defend themselves, Mr. Jacobs. They'll have their day in court, and if your claims are true, I'll fire them. Does that work for you? He asked. Yes, that works, Mr. Langley, I replied. Good. And? Thank you for informing me, Mr. Jacobs. You're welcome, I said, ending the call. There was one more call to make. I looked at the information Terry had given me about Alan Williams and made my next move. I dialed the New York number for Alan and Rhonda Williams, hoping Alan's wife would answer. A woman picked up after 2 rings. Williams' residence, she said. May I speak with Rhonda Williams, please? I asked. This is Rhonda, the woman replied. Mrs. Williams, my name is Mike Jacobs. I have some bad news about your husband, Alan. I heard her sigh before speaking. What has my husband done now? She asked quietly. Your husband has been cheating on you with my wife, I told her. You have proof of this? I have video of them together. Damn him, Rhonda hissed. I told him if this happened again, we were through. There's more, Mrs. Williams, I said. Please call me Rhonda, she said. So there's more? Yes, Rhonda, call me Mike. Your husband has been arrested for planning to kill me and for blackmail. More charges may come. He and 2 others are on their way to the county jail as we speak, I said. Oh my God, Rhonda whispered, sounding sad. I'm really very sorry about this. It's not your fault, Rhonda. He made these choices. Now he has to face the consequences. Yes, you're right. Can you send me the proof you have? Of course, I said. Rhonda gave me her personal email, and I added it to my contacts. I'll send you everything I have as soon as we hang up. Again, I'm sorry about this. Like you said, Mike, it's not your fault. Alan made his bed. Now he has to lie in it. Thank you for telling me, Rhonda said sadly. I felt bad for her and her children, knowing the media would make a big deal out of Alan's actions. We ended the call, and I kept my promise. I emailed her all the videos I had of Alan with a short note expressing my sympathy. One more call to make, and it would be the hardest. I picked up the phone again and called Pop. He answered after the second ring. Sam's been arrested, I said quietly. Yes, I know. She called me from the county jail, Pop said. I could hear the sadness in his voice. She says they're charging her with planning to kill you. Is it true? I'm afraid so, Pop, I said. I have it on video. I can't believe she would do something like that, Pop sighed. She did, Pop. Anyway, now it's up to the police. Who else knows? Pop asked. Her boss, Wilson Langley. I told him a few minutes ago. I also spoke to Alan Williams' wife in New York, and my lawyer. You know this is going to make news headlines, Pop said. Probably, I said. Things like this usually do. Pop chuckled at that. We'll get through it, Pop finally said. Thanks for telling me. You're welcome, I replied. I felt bad for the old guy, knowing he wasn't responsible for what his daughter had done. Well, I should go, Pop finally said. Let me know if you hear anything. All right, Pop. Have a good evening. Give my best to Mom, I said before hanging up. Looking out the sliding glass doors to the balcony, I saw the sun had set and the city lights were twinkling. I felt a bit relieved about the day's events and wanted to do something, anything. I felt like leaving and going back home, but I remembered the restraining order was still in effect. I wouldn't be shocked if Allison's private investigators were watching to see if I tried to sneak back once the troublemakers were gone. I had to get out of that room before I went crazy. So I went downstairs, bought another cigar, and sat by the pool. I enjoyed the cool night air, had a drink, and smoked. After a couple of hours, I went back to my room, got under the covers, and slept like a baby. I woke up later than usual the next morning. I showered, shaved, and did my routine before going downstairs for breakfast. I didn't have any plans, but I was waiting for news from Alice. I took a slow walk around downtown, then went back to my room. A knock came at the door just after I got back. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I grabbed my gun and looked through the peephole. I saw two men in cheap suits with badges on their belts. Who is it? I asked. Police department, Mr. Jacobs. We'd like a word, please, one of them said. Hold your IDs up so I can see them, I told them. They looked at each other, shrugged, and showed their police IDs. They were Detectives Johnson and Caraway. I had met Johnson a few years back at a fundraiser for officers killed in the line of duty. I knew of Caraway, but hadn't met him before. I decided they were legit and put my gun away. Just a moment, I said. I opened the door a bit and checked the hall, then let them in. Just so you know, there's a loaded weapon in the room, I told them. It's safe. We figured as much, Mr. Jacobs, one detective said. We know you're a former federal agent and have a permit to carry. We just have a few questions about your wife and some of her friends. All right, come on in. Want some coffee? Sure. Black, please, Detective Johnson said. Caraway agreed, so I poured them each a cup. They took a sip and grimaced. This is coffee? Caraway asked. That's what the package says, I replied. Tastes fine to me. Yeah, you're a former Fed, all right, Johnson said with a smile. I invited them to sit, and I sat on the bed. So, what can I do for you? I asked. We're here about the charges against your wife, Samantha Jacobs, her lawyer, Allison Cartwright, and her friend Alan Williams, Johnson said. I figured, I said jokingly. What do you want to know? We understand Mrs. Jacobs has filed for divorce, claiming adultery. She says it's a misunderstanding and that you made the report out of revenge, Caraway read from his notebook. I take it you haven't seen the video, I responded. They seemed surprised. I guess that's a no, right? We don't know about any video, Johnson said. Well, watch this, I said. I played the video on my laptop. They watched, shocked, as the three plotted to harm me if I didn't go along with their plan. They also noticed Alan's plan to mess with my computer. Do you know what's on that thumb drive Williams has? Johnson asked. Probably harmful stuff, I told him. Since he had it when he was arrested, you can find it at the county jail. We'll check it out, Caraway told Johnson, who agreed. Can you give us a copy of all the videos? Johnson asked. Sure, I said. I copied everything onto a thumb drive and handed it to them. When's the court hearing? I asked. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., Johnson said. The DA might have some questions for you. I'll be there, I told him. One suggestion. Look deeper into Cartwright. I suspect this isn't her first time. What makes you think that? Caraway asked. I talked to Alvin Morrison, Samantha's first husband. Cartwright tried the same trick with him. I can give you his contact info. Please do, Johnson said. I wrote down Alvin's info and also showed them the photos Allison used in both divorce cases. Interesting, Caraway said. Indeed, Johnson agreed. All right, Mr. Jacobs. We'll talk to Morrison. Thanks for your help. My pleasure, I said. One last thing, Mr. Jacobs. Consider this a friendly warning. You're not a federal agent anymore. Pulling a gun on officers isn't smart, no matter the reason. Let us handle this, okay? Got it, Detective Johnson, I said with a smile. We all shook hands, and I walked them to the door. Seeing it was time for lunch, I ordered a sandwich from room service and watched some TV while I ate. Alice called me in the afternoon. She informed me that Judge Banks had not only canceled the restraining order, but also unfroze my accounts and made Samantha return 30% of the money she had taken from me. He's also reporting Cartwright to the bar and the state attorney's office for her bad actions, Alice said. You've been busy, I told her. I'm just getting started, cowboy, Alice responded with a chuckle. I'll file your response and divorce papers tomorrow. Things are about to get messy. So what now? I asked. I'll get the money from Samantha. You work on the checklist I gave you, Alice said. That should keep you busy for the rest of the afternoon. Plan on moving back into your house tomorrow morning. Actually, I'd like to move back in today, I said. I need to change the locks and make sure Samantha doesn't come back. I've been invited by the DA to Samantha's court hearing tomorrow morning. Are you going to be there? Only if you need me, Alice replied. If they release any of them on bail, I'll need a new restraining order, I told her. From what I've heard, the DA will ask for them to be held until their trial, Alice said. But who knows what the judge will decide. Okay, I'll be there just in case. Thanks, I said. After ending the call with Alice, I called Pop. Hey, boy, how's life treating you? The older man asked, sounding his usual gruff self. Doing better, Pop. Thanks for asking. Listen, the restraining order has been lifted, and I plan to be back at the house tonight. Can you get some of your guys over there to get Samantha's stuff out? Yeah, I can do that, son, he said. You think she'll be out on bail soon? Not from what I've heard, but you never know with these judges. Ain't that the truth? Pop hissed. What time you want the truck there? Around 4:30. Shouldn't take long to throw her stuff into some garbage bags. Pop chuckled at that. You're something else, Mike, he said jokingly. I learned from the best, Pop, I joked back. Yeah, you did. And don't forget it. We both laughed. All right, I'll have some guys over around 4 o'clock. Let me know how the hearing goes. I will, I promised. We ended the call, and I headed to the bank to sort out my accounts. Then I went to the office to deal with HR stuff. While there, I checked in with my boss, Jack Iverson. How are things? He asked. Going well, I said. Got the restraining order lifted and the bank account unfrozen. Samantha and her pals were arrested last night. Arrested? Jack asked, shocked. Yeah, for plotting to kill me and extortion. More charges might come. The arraignment is tomorrow morning. And the DA wants you there? Yep, he might need me. I'm not sure yet. Hope it works out, Jack said. You moving back home today? That's my plan. Let me know how everything goes, Jack said. I will, I told him before leaving. I went back to the hotel, checked out, and drove home. Home. My safe place away from the craziness of life. I pulled into the garage, closed the door, and went to the kitchen door. Before going inside, I took out my gun. I didn't expect any trouble, but I wasn't taking any risks. I carefully went inside and turned off the alarm. The place was dark and quiet. Too dark and too quiet, really. The only sound was from the old grandfather clock in the living room. I checked the whole house to make sure no one was there. Once I was sure the place was safe, I put my gun away and took my things upstairs. I unpacked and then took a shower and changed into something comfortable. Right at 4 p.m., I heard a big truck pull into my driveway. Looking out the window, I saw 3 men get out and come to the door. I let them in, handed them a box of large trash bags, and showed them where Samantha's stuff was. One man started putting her clothes into bags, while another emptied her drawers and toiletries into another bag. I showed the third man around and pointed out the furniture, pots, pans, dishes, CDs, and other stuff Samantha had brought. While they worked on getting Samantha's stuff out, I unlocked my office door and checked everything there. It looked fine, so I turned on my house stereo. Soon, the unique sounds of classic Tull filled the house. Yeah, I was home. Deal with it, I thought. I pulled out my phone and called a locksmith that ISS had suggested. I knew it was late, so I offered to pay extra for his services. He agreed and said he'd come right over. The last thing I needed was Samantha or her friends having access to my house if they got out on bail. The locksmith arrived half an hour later and got to work. A couple of hours later, the 3 men said they were done. By then, the locksmith had changed all the locks and left with his payment. I walked through the house with Pop's guys to make sure they got everything. What about the pictures on the wall? one of the men asked, pointing at the photos of Samantha and me. Nah, I said. I need kindling for the fireplace tonight. They all laughed. By the way, could you do me a favor? Sure, Mr. Jacobs. What is it? Call me Mike. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind taking the mattress off the bed in the master bedroom. What do you want us to do with it? The lead asked. Maybe toss it in the dump, burn it, whatever. I don't care, I don't want it. I figured I would sleep in the guest bedroom and order a new mattress tomorrow. There was no way I was going to sleep on the mattress Samantha soiled with her cheating. Sure, I understand, Mike, the lead said. Come on, give me a hand, he said to the other two men. Thanks, I appreciate it, I told him. They moved the old mattress down the staircase and tossed it without care in the back of the truck. I thanked them for their work and gave them each a $100 bill. They worked hard and deserved a little extra. We said our goodbyes, and I watched as they left with Samantha's stuff. Turning back to the inside of the house, I saw the empty spots where Samantha's things used to be. Oh well, I thought, this too shall pass. Tired and a bit hungry, I ordered some lasagna from Luigi's. The lady who took my order said it would take about an hour for delivery. That was fine with me. I could use the time to relax. With a cup of hot coffee from my Keurig, I sat in my recliner and turned on the TV to catch up on the news. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed, and I saw it was a call from Ron Wiseman. Curious, I took the call. Mike Jacobs, you old dog. How's it going? He asked. I just got back to the house, got rid of her stuff and just relaxing. What do you have for me? Well, you'll be happy to hear I found no links between your wife and the old MMS, even though she's Pat Witherspoon's daughter. I did, however, find links between the old group and the lawyer Allison Cartwright. Oh? I asked, interested. Yes, about 8 or 9 years ago. She used a different name back then. Ellen Griswold. Worked in upstate New York. According to Witherspoon's notes, she had a problem with some of the more rough measures the group took against cheaters. She had no problem with punishing the men they targeted, but she apparently felt some of the other actions were too harsh. When the group started getting into politics, she decided to leave. Mona Larson let her go, strangely enough. She left New York, changed her name, and had some plastic surgery. But there's more. I found a note by Larson where she thought about taking Griswold out. It didn't happen, though, because the note was written just a few days before Larson was taken out, and the job was never finalized. Very interesting, I said. I thought so too, Ron said. She may have quit the group, but she never gave up on the idea of punishing cheating husbands. For the last 8 years, she's been with Hempstead, handling divorce cases. So far, she's only represented women. I'm diving deep into those cases, but it seems that nearly 90% of them involve cheating. How many cases has she handled so far? I asked. On average, she's taken on about 80 cases a year. Do the math. 80 cases a year for 8 years. That's 640 cases, Ron said. More or less, there's more. I found her name linked to about 500 bank accounts across the country. I'm still looking into those, but it seems she can access about $25 million in total. Damn, I said. Yeah, and guess what? Those accounts were set up by her for the women she's represented. Samantha has one, set up when she divorced her first husband. Have you given this information to the district attorney? I asked. Yes, I just got off the phone with him. Our own DIU will be looking into it as well. DIU? Oh, right, that was set up after you left. Divorce Investigation Unit. Your old buddy Ray Ochoa runs it. I expect you might be getting a visit from one of his people in a day or two. Thanks for the heads up, I said. This actually explained a lot. I couldn't help but wonder what the DA would do with this information. Is there anything else? Not at the moment, Ron replied. I'm still gathering and sorting data. It could take a while to piece this all together. She's had 8 years to set this up. There's something I don't understand, though, I told Ron. Why didn't Larson use the old poison trick on her? Isn't that how she always handled loose ends? Yes, it was, at least toward the end. However, Griswold left the group before Larson started using that widely, so she never got implanted, or at least that's what I gathered from Witherspoon's notes. Do you think Samantha knew about Cartwright's history? I asked. I doubt it, Mike, but I'm pretty sure she knew what Cartwright is currently doing. She had to. You're probably right. Anything else? I feel I'm just scratching the surface here, Mike. I'll know more over the next 24 to 48 hours. Okay, well, thanks, Ron. I appreciate it. How's everything with you and Amy, by the way? I asked. We're doing great. Thanks for asking. Her knife-throwing skills are getting better with every new executive her company hires, Ron joked. I laughed at that. They must be, I joked. But on the upside, the number of harassment complaints has dropped to almost nothing, Ron said, half joking. We ended the call, and I turned back to the TV. Before long, my dinner arrived, and I enjoyed my lasagna while watching an old John Wayne movie. I followed that up with a drink and a cigar. I suppose this is where guys in my situation think deeply about life, love, and the meaning of the universe, which, as I recall from the old movie, is 42, or something like that. Yes, I'm sad and deeply hurt. But I'm not made that way. I'm usually a straightforward person. So here's what happened. Samantha cheated on me. Then she tried to make me look like the bad guy. She even got a shady lawyer involved. She wanted to take my house and most of my money using fake evidence. And to make things worse, she and Allison even talked about having me killed if I didn't go along with their plan. I found out she had done this to another guy before. She probably thought she could do it again, but she messed up this time. I really hate losing arguments. Maybe I should have checked her background before we got married. But when you're in love, you don't think about those things. Yes, I was in love with Samantha once. I trusted her a lot, maybe too much. But that's in the past now. Samantha made a big mistake. Now she has to face the consequences. I remember telling Allison that they had declared war. The first part of my counterattack is done. The restraining order on me is lifted. My bank accounts are free, and I'm back in my house. Samantha is in jail now. I will do everything I can to keep her there, along with the others who helped her. Tomorrow is phase 2 of my plan. I will be at her court hearing. If the district attorney needs me to speak, I will tell the court everything I know. After finishing my cigar, I went upstairs, got undressed, and crawled into bed in the guest room. It felt good to be home, even if it was in the guest room. The house felt empty without Samantha, but I put that thought away. I had to treat this like an important job, putting my emotions aside. Tomorrow is another day, and from now on, I will be in control. I don't like to lose an argument. The next morning, I got up, got ready, and had some coffee before heading to the courthouse. I wanted to see the 3 people when they came into the courtroom. I was surprised to see Alice, my lawyer, there. "How are you holding up, Mike?" she asked. "Better now that I'm back in my own house." "That's good to hear. I wanted to be here to support you," Alice said. "Thank you," I said with a smile. The double doors opened and a line of people in orange jumpsuits walked in. Allison, Samantha, and Alan were among them, and they didn't look happy. Tough luck, I thought. Samantha looked tired, and Allison didn't look much better. "All rise," the large guard commanded. We stood up as Judge Wilfred T. Stone entered the courtroom. He nodded and sat down, signaling the guard. "Be seated," he ordered. Judge Stone started at one end of the line. He was tough on the people in orange. It seemed like he never granted bail. Before he reached Samantha and her friends, a well-dressed man and a woman I hadn't seen in years entered the courtroom and went to talk with the district attorney. I knew the man, U.S. Attorney Ronald Sharp. I had worked with him in the past. The woman was Julie Bascom, who worked at the Denver office of a special task force when I was on active duty. She was a smart and capable person. Julie walked over to me with a smile, and I couldn't help but smile back. "Mike, it's good to see you," Julie said. "I'm Special Agent Julie Bascom, HFSTF, she said, showing her ID. "I'm with the Divorce Investigation Unit. Can we talk for a moment?" "Sure," Alice said. We left the courtroom before the judge could order us out. Ron was still talking with the DA, who looked unhappy. "What's going on?" I asked Julie. "There have been some new developments," Julie said. "The federal agents are taking over the case against Allison Cartwright, Alan Williams, and your wife." "So this is a task force issue now?" I asked. "Not entirely," Julie said. "The FBI and some other agencies are involved, but we also have a role in it. I talked to Ron Wiseman earlier, and he said there was nothing for the task force. What changed?" I asked, confused. "He found some troubling things after you spoke. He gave them to us, and we found more. You can guess what happened next." It turns out Allison was running a small version of an old scam, and Samantha was helping her. "Wow! What was Williams' role?" I asked. He mostly arranged for the people to do the dirty work, Julie said. So what happens now? Alice asked. Federal marshals are ready to take all three of them into custody. They will be taken to D.C. while a federal grand jury looks at the charges, Julie said. What are they being charged with? I asked. A lot of serious charges. Racketeering, extortion, money laundering, several conspiracy charges, including planning to murder you. But the biggest charge is murder. It seems Allison had some uncooperative people killed, Julie explained. And from what we can tell, Samantha knew everything about it. Overall, it's a pretty messy case. What about Williams? I asked. The evidence shows he set up the accidents that killed 2 men, Julie said. And it looks like there's a third death linked to Williams. The U.S. Attorney is pushing for the death penalty for all 3. Is there a way to see Mrs. Jacobs before they're taken away? Alice asked. I need to give her divorce papers. I'll try to arrange it, Julie said before turning to me. I don't need to return to Fort Apache for a couple of days, Mike. Do you think we could maybe spend some time together? I understood what she meant. We'd enjoyed each other's company before, even though our job had strict rules about dating. I think I owe you a dinner, I said. Yes, you do, Julie said with a slight smile. How about tonight? Luigi's? They make great lasagna, I suggested. And after all this time, you still remember I love lasagna? She asked. Of course, I said. Julie smiled and wrote something on the back of her business card before handing it to me. Here's my personal cell number and where I'm staying. How does 6:30 p.m. sound? I'll be there, I said, putting the card in my pocket. We should go back inside, Alice said. We returned to the courtroom and saw Ron, the district attorney and the defense lawyer, talking to the judge. We took our seats again, while Julie went to talk quietly with the 2 large federal marshals. They listened, shrugged, and nodded. I talked to the marshals. They said you can meet with Julie for a few minutes before they're taken away, Julie whispered when she returned. I thanked her just as the judge finished speaking with the lawyers. Detainees Jacobs, Cartwright, and Williams. You are ordered to surrender to federal marshals. They will take you to Washington, D.C., where you will stay until a federal grand jury completes its investigation, Judge Stone said. He nodded, and the bailiff unshackled the 3 conspirators. The marshals cuffed them and led them away, nodding at Julie. Let's go, Julie said, standing up. Alice and I followed and met the marshals outside a small room behind the courtroom. You have 5 minutes, one of the marshals said. Allison and Alan looked at the floor, hands cuffed behind their backs. That's enough, Alice said. Thank you. We stepped inside and saw Samantha sitting at a table, her hands cuffed to a metal bar on the table. One of her co-workers from Hempstead sat next to her. Samantha looked up as we entered. Hello, Samantha, I said. Enjoying your little adventure? Shut up, Samantha said quietly. I chuckled. Not today, Samantha. Not ever again, I said. What do you want? Asked the man next to her. You must be her lawyer, Alice said. Yes, John Ashcroft, Hempstead Law Group. Well, Mr. Ashcroft, I'm Alice Hawkins, Mr. Jacobs' lawyer, and I'm here to give your client divorce papers. Do what you came to do, John said. Alice turned to Samantha and dropped the papers on the table. Samantha Jacobs, you have been served, Alice said. Yeah, whatever, Samantha said. John picked up the papers and looked through them. This is my client's response to the false and unfair petition your client served on him. It was based on lies by an unethical lawyer now facing multiple charges, including extortion and conspiracy to commit murder. I have asked the court to reject her petition. Your client should sign the papers now. Everything follows the prenup she signed before the marriage. She also needs to return money she stole from the joint account. Here's a copy of the order asking for the money back if you haven't seen it already. With that, she dropped another paper on the table, which John picked up and read. Mrs. Jacobs gave me power of attorney over her affairs, so I will handle this quickly, Miss Hawkins. Is there anything else? Yes, I said, looking at Samantha. Why, Sam? What happened? Samantha looked at me, almost unrecognizable from the woman I married. She shrugged. Because I could, she said. So what? So what? Is that all you have to say after all the years we were together? Yeah, Samantha said flatly. I guess so. I nodded as her words hit me. Whatever love I once had for her was completely gone now. Her lawyer spoke up. "We're done here, Mr. Jacobs. My client has nothing more to say," he said. "You know she's facing the death penalty?" I asked him. "Yes, I'm aware," John said. I looked at Samantha and saw a smirk as if she didn't care. Fine, I thought, neither do I. "Good luck," I said, signaling Alice to leave. We stepped into the hallway, and I came face to face with Allison, who was also smirking. "What's so funny?" I asked her. She snorted before speaking. "Just wait, Mike Jacobs. A new way is coming. When the sisterhood takes power, there'll be no place for old-timers like you," she sneered. I looked at Julie, who also caught Allison's message. "Well, from where I stand, it looks like there'll be no place for you either," Julie said. "I told you before, I don't like to lose an argument," I said firmly. The door opened and Samantha came back with her lawyer and another marshal. John handed the divorce papers to Alice. "They're signed," he said softly. "The marshal saw her sign, and I've notarized the papers. File them and get me a copy, please." "Consider it done," Alice said as she looked over the papers. "Thank you." She put the documents in her case, and we each went our own way. Alice filed the documents, and Julie went back to the courtroom to meet Ron, reminding me about our dinner date first. I left the courthouse and got a burger. After eating, I stopped at a store and ordered a new mattress that could be adjusted. When I got home, I called Pop to tell him what happened. "What will happen to her?" my father-in-law asked. I could hear the sadness and disappointment in his voice. No matter what Samantha had done, I liked and respected him. He deserved to know the truth, though I worried it might be too much for him. "It's all right. I can handle it, whatever it is." "The U.S. attorney wants the death penalty," I said. I heard Pop sniff as he tried to stay calm. "Do you think they will get it?" Pop asked, his voice shaking. "I don't know. I haven't seen the evidence, but what I've heard doesn't look good." "She's my only child, you know," Pop said quietly. "I know. Does she have a good lawyer? The federal prosecutors can be very tough." "I think her firm has that covered," I told him. "Tell me something, honestly. Is this what you want for her?" Pop asked. "Honestly, no. I want her out of my life, and I want her to pay for what she did. But I don't want her dead." "Thank you for that, son," Pop said. "What are you going to do?" "I plan to move on, Pop. I'll likely be called to testify. Of course, I'll tell the truth and let the jury decide. From what I've seen, Samantha has a lot to answer for." "I understand," Pop said. We talked for a bit, and the call ended on a somewhat happier note. After that, I called Luigi's and got us a table for two for that night. I wasn't sure what to expect from my date with Julie. We had met years ago when I was a federal agent. Still, nothing came of it then because of the job. I wondered what it would be like to spend more time with her now. I reached Julie's hotel and called her to say I had arrived and was coming to her room. I was speechless when she opened the door. Julie's long, wavy hair fell over her bare shoulders. She wore a short black dress that fit her nicely. This was the first time I had seen her in something other than a dark suit, and I was stunned by her beauty. "Cat got your tongue, Mike?" Julie asked with a playful smile. "You're absolutely stunning," I stammered, feeling like a teenager on his first date. "Thank you," Julie replied, "and I must say you look quite sharp yourself." I offered her my right arm, needing my left for my cane. She took it, and we walked to my car. Like a true gentleman, I opened the car door for her. "This is a very nice car, Mike," Julie said when I got in. "Thank you. It's one of the perks of being an executive. Wait until you hear the sound system." "You still like Jethro Tull?" Julie asked. "You even have to ask?" I responded. "Listen to this." I started the system, and the sounds of Thick as a Brick filled the car. It's one of my all-time favorites. I knew Julie liked Tull, too. At least she did the last time we talked. "So where the hell was Biggles when I once worked with someone like that, and it made me really angry?" I laughed a bit at that. "I understand. So what's this DIU thing about? I don't remember anything like that when I was in the service." "Divorce Investigation Unit," Julie explained. "It's pretty new, made after the President Pierce incident. We check out serious claims of abuse and cheating to see if there's any link to MMS or similar groups." "Must keep you really busy," I said. "Sadly, it does, more than I'd like," Julie said with a sigh. "I'm curious how many of your cases turn out to be true?" Julie finished for me. Not many, about 2%, but that's still more than we'd like. Your case was really interesting. Oh? How so? There were no usual signs, but your soon-to-be ex-wife is the daughter of the most infamous MMS agent, and her lawyer was part of that group. That got our attention fast. I can't say much more because it's with a federal grand jury now, but Wiseman and his team found a lot. It looks bad for all three of them. Your guy Torres also found important stuff. I'm glad he could help. Have his findings been given to the right people? Yes, they have. He's been told not to share everything he knows. It's a matter of national security, so please, don't be too hard on him. I won't. Terry is good. I trust him. Thanks for the heads up. You're welcome, Julie said. So what's this talk about a new way and sisterhood? I heard about it from Allison and Samantha earlier. You picked up on that, Julie responded. After MMS's old structure fell, the group changed. It went global and became more extreme. They even murdered a county commissioner in Texas recently as part of an experiment. Damn, I shuddered. We're not sure if those are new names for the group or just terms they use. Could be both. They're much more dangerous now than when you were in the service. You need to be very careful. Careful is my middle name, I joked, making her laugh. Just then, our food arrived. We both ordered Luigi's special lasagna, dripping with cheese and full of meat and mushrooms. We both dug in, using our breadsticks to mop up the extra sauce. This is delicious, Julie said. It's one of my favorites. I could eat it until I'm sick. I can see why, Julie said. By the way, there's a nice dance club next door. After we eat, would you like to go for a drink and maybe dance a bit? I asked. Why, Mike Jacobs, if I didn't know better, I'd think you're trying to charm me, Julie said with a laugh. What, me? I said, pretending to be shocked. Yes, you. But honestly, I'd love to have a drink and a dance with you. That is, if you can keep up with me. Well, I mostly stick to slow dances these days, I teased. Julie's smile got bigger, showing her dimples. I could get lost in those dimples. How do you manage with? She asked. I learned to improvise, adapt, and overcome, I told her. In that case, I'd love a couple of slow dances with you, Mike, Julie said with a promising smile. Our waitress brought the check, so I handed her my card. She came back a few minutes later, and we finished up. We headed to the dance club, which wasn't too busy. Julie drew a lot of attention when we walked in. I could almost hear the men talking about her. They had no idea what she could do if they crossed a line. We found a table and ordered drinks. When the band started playing a slow song, I asked Julie to dance, and she said yes. We went to the dance floor. I put my right arm around her and held my cane in my left hand. Julie moved close to me as we danced. Slow and steady was the trick. You're so light on your feet, Mike, Julie whispered as I held her close. I breathed in the scent of her hair as she rested her head on my shoulder. Where there's a will, there's a way, I whispered back. We danced through 2 slow songs and then went back to our table. That was nice, Julie said quietly. I never thought of you as a dancer. Things have changed over the years. Dancing helped me a lot during my therapy. Did you and Samantha come here often? I tried to make it a weekly thing, but the last few months were tough. She was distant. I thought it was work stress. Now I know better, I said. Enough about my problems. How have you been? Met anyone special? Not really, Julie said with a laugh. Maybe it's our job. We see so much pain. Not the best for a relationship. I understand, I said. I did meet someone once, Julie said thoughtfully. But he turned out to be a jerk, a player. I dumped him and moved on. I'm sorry to hear that, I told her. Don't be, Julie said with a shrug. I'm just glad I found out before it was too late. Yeah, so what's your plan now? I plan to stay with the task force. I'll retire in a couple of years. Maybe buy a condo by the beach and live with my cat. That's quite a life plan. I guess so, Julie said. She looked sad, so I tried to cheer her up by changing the subject. Why don't we leave this place and listen to some music? Do you still have that collection of Tull records? Julie asked. Yes, I do, I told her. I've even added more since we last met. Well, let's go then, Julie said, putting her arms around my shoulders. Where did that come from? I asked, surprised. A book I read online, Julie answered. Are we going or what? Yes, ma'am, I said, grabbing my cane. We paid our bill and left the club to go to my place. Once there, I showed Julie around and stopped in my office where I kept my Tull vinyl records. I let Julie pick an album, and she chose A Passion Play. I turned on my stereo and played the record. We moved to the living room as music filled the house. I poured us some wine, and we sat on the couch, listening. When side one finished, I flipped the album to side two. Julie laughed a lot at the story of the hare who lost his spectacles. "What's so funny?" I asked as the story played. "I don't know, but it always makes me laugh," Julie said. She set down her wine glass and turned to me. She unbuttoned my shirt and ran her hand over my chest while looking into my eyes. "Mike, did you ever wonder?" She stopped talking because we started kissing. It was the most intense kiss I had ever experienced. When we finally stopped, she was straddling my legs and kissing me again. "Yes, many times," I whispered. She hugged my neck and kissed me again. Things moved quickly, and soon we were holding each other closely on the couch. "I think the song is about finished," Julie said after a while. I listened and realized she was right. There was a rush along the Fulham Road into the Ever-Passion Play. "I guess this is our song now?" I asked. Julie smiled. "Yes, our song," she said. "Want to play another album?" "Sure," I said as she kissed my face. She got off my lap, and I stood up with my cane's help. I switched A Passion Play with Live Bursting Out and went back to the couch. Julie noticed the scar on my thigh. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, it's just... I've never seen your scar before. It's worse than I thought." "It's better now," I said. "If it bothers you, I can put my trousers back on." "No, don't," Julie said. "It's part of you. I don't mind. I have a few scars, too." I thought Julie looked perfect, but then I noticed some faint lines on her torso. "This happened in Seattle, a knife fight. You should see the other person. Does it bother you?" "Not at all," I told her. "You're perfect just as you are." I hesitated for a moment before asking, "Would you like to stay the night?" Her smile lit up the room. "I thought you'd never ask," Julie said, hugging me. We went upstairs, leaving our clothes in the living room. "I hope you don't mind using the guest bedroom. I'm getting a new mattress for the master bedroom." "That explains the box springs. I thought maybe you had some kind of strange hobby," Julie laughed. We both chuckled at that. We got into the guest bed and snuggled for a while. "I really enjoyed our time together. You have no idea how long I've wanted this." "Really? I'm glad you enjoyed it. I did too. Honestly, I wish it didn't have to end." Julie smiled, kissed me, then moved closer to me before we fell asleep. That was something Samantha had never done. Julie softly kissed her way up my body, and we were together again, this time deeply connected. We made love and then fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon. After freshening up in the bathroom, I quickly put on some casual clothes. I went downstairs to find Julie in the kitchen wearing one of my long-sleeve shirts. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she greeted me with a smile and handed me a cup of coffee. "Breakfast is almost ready." "You're spoiling me, you know that?" I said after giving her a kiss. "Isn't that the idea?" She replied with a grin. She then brought 2 plates with eggs, bacon, and toast, handing me one and placing the other in front of her. "This is delicious," I said after tasting the eggs. "Thank you," Julie replied. "Though eggs are hard to mess up." "Maybe," I said, "or maybe it's special because you made it." "Thanks for last night," Julie said with a hint of sadness. "I really needed that." "I think we both did," I agreed. "That was the best night I've had in a very long time. I wished it would never end. But I know you have work to do. I get it." "Yes, work's calling, but Fort Apache isn't that far. We have weekends, and I'll be retiring in a couple of years. We'll have time to get to know each other better. What do you think?" "I'd love that," I said. "I felt a connection last night that I haven't felt in a long time. I want to make sure this isn't just a passing moment." "I feel the same," Julie said. "For what it's worth, I don't usually stay over like last night, but I've liked you for a long time. And I've liked you too. Is there something you want to say?" "I don't want to be your rebound relationship, Mike. You're just starting your divorce. It's a tough journey. Trust me, I've seen how rough it can be. But I'll be here for you whenever you need." "Thank you for that," I said, trying to sound neutral. "Let's take it slow and easy. I'll come and spend weekends with you if you want. If you need to talk, call me anytime. There's no rush, and just so you know, I don't have a boyfriend anywhere else. I thought about what Julie said for a moment before responding. All right, I said. You're welcome here anytime, and I definitely want to see you on the weekends. You know I might have to work some weekends, right? Oh, yes, I know that. No worries, I chuckled. I won't forget, she said, but I need to get dressed. I have a meeting with the U.S. Attorney later, and I don't think he'd like me showing up like this, Julie added, pointing to the shirt. I smiled. I like seeing you dressed like that, I laughed, making Julie smile. You're naughty, Julie teased. Yes, I am, I joked back. We hugged and kissed for a bit before Julie got dressed and went upstairs. I watched her go with a smile, then cleared the table and did the dishes. Julie came back downstairs later, dressed and ready to go back to her hotel. I grabbed my keys and we drove there. When we arrived, she gave me a long kiss. What do you want for dinner tonight? I asked. Surprise me, Julie said with a smile. I have to fly back to Fort Apache tomorrow. Think you can handle one more night with me? I think I can manage, but I'll have to tell my other girlfriends that I have a date, I joked. Yeah, right, she said, playfully smacking my arm. I'll call when I'm done, okay? Sounds good. By the way, you should have this, I said, handing Julie a key to the house and a card with the security code. This is the code for the alarm. Enter it within a minute of opening the door. Thanks for that, Julie said, taking the card. She gave me another kiss, then got out of the car and went into the hotel. I waited until she was inside, then drove to the office. Hey, are we going casual today and no one told me? Jack asked when I walked in. I laughed. I guess you could say that. Everything's going well, I replied. Good to hear. Have you seen Terry? I need to talk to him. I haven't, but he's around somewhere, Jack said. I'll call him then. No big deal. How did the arraignment go? Better than expected. Samantha and her friends are now in federal custody heading to Washington. They're being investigated by a federal grand jury. Interesting, Jack said. So are you back for good now? I think so. I do have a date tonight, though. A date? That was quick? Who is she? Her name is Julie Bascom. We served together. She's retiring soon. Well, enjoy your date. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, Jack joked. I laughed again. Yeah, right, I said before heading to my office. When I arrived, I called Terry. Hey, boss, I was just about to come see you. Is everything okay? I asked. Yeah, I just finished my final report. I'm eager to see it. I'll be there in 5 minutes, Terry said before hanging up. True to his word, Terry came into my office 4 minutes later with a thick folder which he handed to me. Wow, you've been busy, I said, feeling the weight of the folder. Did you give a copy to the feds and Miss Hawkins? Yes, Terry replied. Special Agent Bascom was very happy to get it. You already know most of what's in here. I have a full file on that Williams guy and on Morrison's divorce from Samantha. It's not a pretty story. Did you send a copy to Williams' wife in New York? I asked. Not yet, but I will if you want. Please do. Consider it done. Anything on the photos? Yeah, I talked to my photo expert. He thinks those are printouts from digital images that have been edited. He can't say much more without seeing the original files. That makes sense, I said. Anyway, it's all in there. Everything I found in a couple of days. Hope it helps. Yes, it does, Terry. Great job. Thanks a lot. I owe you. My pleasure, boss, Terry said with a smile. I need to get back to work. Let me know if you need anything else. Will do, Terry, I said. We shook hands and I watched him leave the office. I spent the next couple of hours going through the folder Terry gave me and wondered if I ever really knew Samantha. I finally closed the folder and tossed it on my desk. It was all in the hands of the grand jury now. I caught up on my other work and noticed it was lunchtime, so I went out to grab a sandwich. While I was out, I thought about the dinner I would have with Julie. I wanted to do something special for her. At first, I thought about taking her to the new steakhouse, but then I decided to grill a steak for her at home. After lunch, I returned to the office and checked in with Jack. Jack, do you mind if I head out early? I need to stop by the store on my way home. Sure, Mike, Jack said. We've got everything under control here. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate it. With a wave, I left and stopped at the store. I bought some thick steaks, potatoes, and all the sides. I also grabbed a bottle of wine, then headed home. My phone buzzed while I was preparing the meat, and I saw it was Julie. "Hey, G-Man," she said when I answered. I hadn't heard that in a while, and I smiled. "Hey, yourself," I replied. "How's your day going?" "Interesting," Julie said. "I wanted to check what you had in mind for dinner." "I'm grilling steaks with baked potatoes and green beans. How does that sound?" "Meat! Yes," Julie exclaimed. "I'd love a home-grilled steak." "Your wish is my command," I joked. "Any news?" "Yeah, I'll tell you when I see you tonight." "I look forward to it. I just need to go to the hotel to change, pack up, and check out. You still want me to spend the night, right?" Julie asked. "Of course." "All right, see you soon." We said goodbye and ended the call. I got back to preparing the meal, a smile on my face as I listened to my favorite song. I finished the preparations when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Julie with a clothes bag and an overnight bag. I invited her in. "You know you don't need to ring the doorbell. Mi casa es su casa." "I appreciate that, Mike," Julie said as she entered. "Oh, I smell that barbecue already." "I haven't put the meat on yet. I was waiting for you. How do you like your steak?" "Rare. So rare that it almost moos." "A woman after my own heart," I joked. "Let me put this stuff upstairs and I'll be right out," Julie said. "Need any help?" "I got it, but thanks for offering," Julie replied as she went upstairs. I went out and put the food on the grill and opened the wine. Julie came down, put an arm around my waist and kissed my cheek. That small act of kindness warmed my heart. With the food ready, I plated the steaks and potatoes. We went into the kitchen, added green beans, butter, and sour cream to the potatoes. "This smells so good, Mike," Julie said. "I hope you like it," I replied. "It's been a while since I grilled anything." "I'm sure I'll love it. It's been ages since anyone cooked for me. Next time I'll do the cooking, okay?" "You're on," I said. I watched her take the first bite of steak. She closed her eyes and savored the taste. "This is amazing, Mike. Perfect." "Thank you for saying so." We ate our meal, chatting about small things. After we finished, Julie insisted on doing the dishes, and I let her. Then we moved to the living room with a glass of wine. "So, anything interesting happened today?" I asked after we settled on the couch. "Yes, actually. We looked at the evidence from Cartwright's house." She noticed my reaction. I figured they would search the place, but didn't know they had already done it. "I probably should have told you. The FBI searched her place the day after the arrest." Found loads. Oh? To start off, they found the digital files Cartwright used to make the fake photos. Believe it or not, she used the same set of pictures against hundreds of men over the years. "Wow," I said. "Yeah, it's crazy. We also found all the accounts Cartwright had access to. All the money in those accounts is frozen for now. It's millions more than we thought." "So she's been doing this scam for years," I said. "Yes, with Samantha's help too. And like you guessed, Williams's thumb drive was full of child porn. We also found the same stuff on Cartwright's computer. She was using that along with the fake photos to blackmail her targets. And we found proof linking Cartwright and Williams to at least 3 murders. That, on top of their plan against you. Sounds like they'll be going to jail for a long, long time," I added. "If Ron gets his way, all 3 will get the death penalty," Julie said. "We just have to wait for the grand jury. This could take months or even a couple of years to sort out, judging by what I saw." "What about all the men Cartwright scammed?" I asked. "That's a whole different mess," Julie said. "There will probably be a review of every divorce case Cartwright worked on, and I'm sure there'll be a bunch of lawsuits. Your lawyer, Alice, is eager to start on that." I laughed at that. "I'm sure she is. It's going to be a legal nightmare. I'd be surprised if Hempstead survives this," Julie said. "So you have a lot of work ahead of you for the next couple of years then?" I said. Julie nodded. "Yeah, Ray put me in charge, so I'll be here or at Fort Apache. I might need to go to Washington sometimes." "At least you don't need to worry about where to stay when you're here," I told her. Julie smiled and hugged me. "No, I don't. I hope you don't get tired of having me around." "I could never get tired of that," I told her. We sipped our wine and enjoyed our second night of bliss. My divorce went through smoothly, as expected. Alice filed many lawsuits, and by the end, more than 600 men, including Alvin, got big checks. Alice lowered her fee by more than half, but still made enough to retire. Hempstead nearly collapsed due to the bad press and other reviews, but managed to survive. As Julie said, the federal investigation took 26 months. In the end, a federal grand jury charged Samantha, Allison, and Alan with several crimes, including first-degree murder. Ron, the U.S. attorney in charge, asked for the death penalty for all three. Julie spent those 26 months going back and forth between Fort Apache, Washington, D.C., and my house. It was nice having her around, and we grew closer until I asked her to marry me a few days before Samantha's sentencing. "I thought you'd never ask," Julie said as I put the engagement ring on her finger. We celebrated together that night. Pop was happy for us, and even happier when Julie asked him to walk her down the aisle. Samantha got a chance to make a deal, a guilty plea for a life sentence. She agreed, to Pop's relief. After the deal, she told everything she knew. As a result, Allison and Alan, who lost everything in his divorce, were convicted of all charges and sentenced to death. I saw Samantha twice after she was taken to Washington. The first time was during the trial when I was a witness. She sat with her head down as I answered questions. The second time was at the sentencing. Pop and Julie came with me. Samantha looked terrible the second time. Her hair, once full and shiny, was now messy with gray streaks. She looked like she had aged 20 years with many wrinkles on her face. She glared at me after her sentence was announced. "Happy now?" she asked angrily. "Actually, I've never been happier," I said, looking at Julie. A tear formed in Samantha's eye, then she looked down. I glanced at Allison, who looked just as worn out as Samantha. "I told you, I don't like to lose." Allison lowered her head. Smiling, I walked away to start a new chapter in my life. Hey, audience! If you liked this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.